to me, someone who comes from the Soviet Union, is mind-boggling. And you were talking earlier about why this woke ideology is so dangerous to the West. It is because people in other parts of the world are not teaching their young children to hate their own country. And if you continue to do this, how is the West going to do in the battle of civilizations? Because that's what we're in, right? The Chinese want to thrive, the Russians want to thrive, and they're teaching their children to be strong, to be confident, to go out there to learn science instead of, equity and diversity. And a bridge doesn't work very well if it's built on diversity instead of math. So
I'm with you.
Sasha Latypova, meet Michael Yon. When I asked you if you would join me in this discussion, you said that you follow Michael already, but you haven't yet met him, Sasha, and vice versa. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Thank you for introducing us.
Yeah, and
that's right. Thank you.
And Michael, when I rang you, you were because you're in Sweden at the moment, you were in the kitchen of a fellow who is an activist up in Sweden, I gather, and he was very keen for you to talk to Sasha, wasn't he?
Oh, very keen, yeah. Key man up here was actually, you got to go in with Sasha right now.
Yes,
so
yes. Do you want to say his name? Is it
Lars?
I'm not sure if what's that?
Is it Lars?
That's Lars. That's right. Since you said
I know. I have telepathy.
That's right.
All right. Well, we'll leave that there. But we've just come out of a clip in which somebody is saying that we are in a war for civilization. So this is actually a very serious interview, and it's a time of great gravitas in the world. I want to talk, Sasha, about the court case in which you are involved coming up on March the 9th. That's very important that everybody is appraised of what's going to be going on in the Dutch courts there against Albert Bourla and Bill Gates. But I do want to look at the bigger picture, and that's what you're so formidable with, Michael Yon, the geopolitical system. We are literally in a war for our civilizations, are we not, Michael? This is a very, very important time in human history.
Oh, clearly. And you and Sasha are right in the middle of it. You know this thing quite well. The death jabs are one of the main weapons of the depopulation. Also, we're going to see in the future, it's clear, famines. Let me tell you something that just is unfolding right now. A friend named Max Smith. He's on Substack. He just published this on Substack about 48 hours ago. He was in Chiang Mai, Thailand. He's went up there to go to martial arts training with the Muay Thai, right? And so he's basically traveling the world, self-educating. It's a very interesting thing that he's doing. He was a wildland firefighter, became an EMT, all sorts of things, right? So a component of that is to go to Chiang Mai and do martial arts for a month. So he was there in week 3, which would be about last week, and a dog jumped up on him and scratched him, right? And they call them Thailand, they call them soy ma, street dogs, right? And so he then looked on Chat GPT, and Chat GPT warned him about rabies, which is what you're about to go to court for, and not rabies, but for these scaremongering, that you're about to be involved in this in the Netherlands at the court. So he goes to the hospital, and the doctor said you need to get 5 shots because rabies is endemic to Thailand, which it is, but there's no rabies outbreaks. I checked it. There's nothing going on, right? And so in any case, so he got 4 of the shots, and he's very sick right now. He's publishing it on a Substack. So he punched out of Thailand, and now he's in Osaka, Japan. So I'm saying this openly because it's on Max's Substack. And so it's called The Preparation, what he's doing. He's following a book that was written by his father and Doug Casey. And he's traveling around the world studying in different ways. And then he got scratched by a dog, and now he's about 20 years old, and now he's extremely sick. This just happened. He's sick right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is horrendous. Yeah. This is this is what these people do. They scaremonger. Yeah. I actually recently, another anecdote about a different scaremonger in which they do with pets, the same thing as with humans. I was with a friend is calling her at the same time
all distressed. Oh my God, we found a tick on our dog. Oh, we went to the vet and they took the blood test and they gave the shot. And I'm like, I literally take off about 5 ticks each from my dogs daily. Okay, ticks do not cause any problem. Ticks are nuisance. They can cause infection because it's a large, there's a large wound. But they never caused any issues. I've been taking them off for like 10 years straight, and there's no issue with ticks. Yet they will scaremonger you. And then she said another person, they took the dog to the vet. The vet takes the dog out. This is now the procedure. They take the dog out of the room, jab him up with whatever, bring back to the owner. The owner went back home. In a couple of weeks, dog started to develop a very rapid tumor on its hind leg. And they called the vet and they asked him, in which location did you vaccinate the dog? And the vet says, oh, by law, we're not allowed to tell you that.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And the dog ended up dying. A large Bernese mountain dog. So
I'm hearing that a lot in New Zealand.
Wait,
that dogs
what
are coming
country is that, Sasha?
In the
what
US.
Country?
In the US.
Okay, I'm going to check into that immediately tonight. Okay, that's okay.
And they probably, it depends on the state. Maybe there is such a thing that they tell the vet to tell the owners. I doubt there is a law like that, but that's how they lie to people, and that's how they, they'll damage your dog, they'll kill your dog, and now they vaccinate dogs and cats into the leg or tail because those are easy to amputate in case you get cancer, because they know this will cause cancer.
Oof. That's so interesting. I'm hearing a lot in New Zealand of dogs coming away from the injections with massive shakes, like the neurological shaking I saw in people after the COVID jab.
Yeah.
Yep. And cancers are rampant. I mean, that begs the question. The mRNA looks as if it's in all of the animal injections. But of course, as you say, Sasha, this is a world in which people are so willing to lie right now. It's very precious to get two souls like you who are rampant truth tellers to connect now and amplify one another, because that's really what we have to do. We have to get the good people together to amplify each other's work. I want on that note of opening where the fellow said we are literally in a battle for civilizations. I want to play the beginning of a clip where we see somebody who has been seriously jab injured.
Now that the Epstein files are really pulling back that curtain and we're starting to see just how evil our government is, I think you might be able to handle the truth. But I'm sorry if I'm going to make you uncomfortable in this video, but I think the world needs to see this message. If you're not comfortable enough sharing it, I understand. But if you do, because we're at war right now, and whether you choose to acknowledge the fact that we're at war or we're not at war, actually, if you don't acknowledge it, you do yourself a disservice and you're most likely going to get killed. Once you wake up and realize we're at war and there's a small group of people that are trying to kill us all, specifically our children, it might be an easier pill to swallow, and you might realize that sharing this content and putting your freedom, putting your voice, putting your reputation on the line, at some point you have to draw a line. And if they're willing to do this to all of our children, what line aren't you willing to cross? Where is the line for you? So let me show you Lexi. Do you guys remember Lexi? She's a beautiful 17 or 18-year-old girl getting ready to graduate high school with the entire world ahead of her. And then she went to the doctor's office because she didn't feel good. And they realized that she was behind on her vaccine. So they said, you know what, Lexi? Let's give you the meningitis, let's give you the pneumonia vaccine, and let's get you up to date on your tetanitis. And you want to know what happened? Within minutes, her body had a horrible reaction to those chemical cocktails that they injected in this beautiful girl. And look what they did to her. So as you watch this poor little girl here on your screen, and you're really starting to ask yourself a lot of questions about the vaccines, about everything we've been taught, you have to understand that there is one group of people who is behind the creation of the COVID-19 vaccine. And this is exactly why I wanted to make this video for you, because it's not just the COVID-19 vaccine. It's all of the vaccines. And that's why they've taken over the medical industrial complex. That's why they've taken over our education system. That's why they've created this peer review system that allows them, once taking over our three-letter agencies like the FDA, they're able to pass and allow these chemical cocktails and these poisonous cocktails to be injected into your children, which is exactly why they have the immunity clause, and you can't ever press charges against them for you injecting your child, because they make it your choice. They force you and they convince you as the parent to inject your child with this chemical cocktail in some type of demonic satanic ritual. And you can't look at it any other way. And you ask yourself, well, who was in control of the CDC during COVID-19 when the vaccine or when the virus broke out?
When COVID was being enacted, I'm going to read off the staff of who was in charge of this CDC. The director of the CDC was Rochelle Walensky, dual citizenship with Israel. She's a Jew. Deputy director of the CDC, Ann Shawalchik, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC chief of staff, Sherry Berger, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC chief medical officer, Mitchell Wolf, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC director of the Washington office. This is pertinent to the topic. We're talking about COVID, right? Yeah. This is pertinent to COVID. So I love you, Jennifer. Yeah, please. So director of the CDC of the Washington office, Jeff Resnick, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. COVID czar, Jeff Zaints, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. COVID senior advisor, Andy Slavitt, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Assistant of Health Secretary for Human Services for our country, the Assistant of Health Secretary, Rachel Levine, transgender, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew.
I ask that you hold off, Christopher?
Ma'am, I'm almost done.
Mr.
Pfizer.
Wood, the chair has ruled that your comments are out of order. She's asked you to stop. The chair has...
You said Jew. There's nothing wrong with Jew. It's not derogatory.
Exactly. Okay, keep on going. Head of Pfizer vaccines, Albert Bourla, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Pfizer chief scientist, Michael Dostin, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Moderna chief scientist, Paul Zacks, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. BlackRock, everyone know BlackRock? BlackRock CEO, Larry Fink, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. I said we're willing to sacrifice our ego, our reputation, and our lives. Yes, ma'am, and I love you, and I appreciate your patience. BlackRock president, Rob Capitale, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. The CDC chief medical officer of Johnson & Johnson, Joanne Waldstreicher, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Chief medical officer of Merck, Michael Rosenthal, dual citizenship with Israel.
Michael, that's not an exaggeration either. We're in a battle for civilizations, and we are at a state of war. But with whom are we at war, Michael Yon? And then you, Sasha.
Right. That's Ryan Matta. In fact, he just messaged me like 7 minutes ago. So, I mean, that made that video, right? And he's calling it out as it is. I mean, we're in a state of war with anybody who's pushing these jabs, for starters. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the people that were pushing those jabs was a let's say a periodic table of the elements chart of Zionist. And that includes Christian Zionist, Jewish Zionist, and atheist Zionists. Zionists are the ones that hardcore pushed it. And keep in mind, the Zionists love to conflate Zionism with Judaism, but in fact, most of the Zionists, I was raised as a Christian Zionist, right? I mean, most of the Zionists are Christians. But most of the ones that were running that at Pfizer and whatnot happen to be Jewish, but a lot of them are Christian as well. Look at Trump as a Zionist. Trump's a hardcore jab pusher. This is February 2026, and Trump is still pushing the jab. And people still give him a pass. I mean, at some point, stupidity is its own reward. If you're still supporting Trump, who's pushing the jab in you, well, then go get the jab. I mean, seriously, I mean, at some point, you got to get out of the way because he's getting you out of the way. And yet they'll go, well, we had a choice between Biden and Trump, so Trump somehow magically, Trump is killing you. What is worse than killing you, right? I mean, so is there anything worse than killing you? And somehow Biden was worse.
Yeah. It's
Sasha.
Like, it would have been so much worse. Like, imagine if Hillary won.
Yeah, imagine if Hillary won. She would have killed us. It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Epstein Island. It's a smorgasbord, right? I mean, everybody's there, and so the players involved in this. Who ran Epstein Island? They're always trying to say, well, was it the Iranians? Was it the Russians? No,
it was Israel.
Russians. It was Mossad.
Yeah, Epstein was clearly a Russian agent.
Right, yeah. I mean, now they're trying to blame, so we better go to war with Iran because, well, the Epstein Island thing's breaking, or the Russians. It's the Russians again. For the time that I was in special forces, all I did was train to fight Russians, right? And now, as I get older, I'm like, what was that all about? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, all we did was all I did for.
It was about money and appropriations from Congress by pointing finger at Russia, China, Iran. I mean, they just like change them occasionally, the sequence. But
yeah, when you get worn out, like that's not enemy enough. We have to, nobody responds to Al Qaeda anymore, so we need an ISIS. Eventually you get numb to ISIS, so it's got to be something else. But whatever it will be, it won't be Zionist, right? But it is, and that's what they're panicking about. They're panicking because people are noticing, and tired of it, and resisting in many, many ways. Some of it's just resisting by not going along.
Mm-hmm. Before we get into your case, Sasha, I want to have your reactions, both of you, to the Epstein file drop. Is that, Sasha, a massive distraction while one could say Israel and America have other plans afoot? Is it the magician's trick? Look at the hand, while the other hand's doing something dark.
Yeah, the way they're releasing now they're useful stuff, of course, that even anything came out. I mean, that's we should acknowledge as a step forward in disclosure and accountability. However, the manner in which they released these files and the redactions and how the content was curated is clearly indicates that the administration is providing protection to real criminals. In some cases, they have disclosed, they disclosed identities. They, in some cases, leaked nude photos of the victims, so victimizing them again under pretenses, we were in a hurry, we just didn't redact some things. But then consistently, the names of the criminals who admit to murder, torture of children, rape of children, those are redacted. And only, yesterday, I believe, Thomas Massey named some names, I think 5 or 6 names that he named, including the Saudi prince, who was admitting to enjoying the torture videos that Epstein sent to him. And that Saudi prince, prominently Trump's friend, being wined and dined, entertained, and nobody bats an eye. Right, so administration still has no plans of prosecuting anyone or releasing the names of those other criminals that we see in the files, that they're exchanging these materials and talking about the victims, talking about all sorts of horrific things. So that tells me they want some sort of a airing out session, hoping that this will burn itself through and people will get tired and move on to the next distraction. It may also serve as a distraction to other things that they're doing right now. And so that's kind of my take on this.
And Sasha, there's another argument that, and maybe Michael, I'd like your feedback on this, that it's a mind game as well. This whole thing is a giant mind game with us. So a lot of the content is designed to traumatize the people who look at it. Do you advise people to go deeply into these files, or to accept there is pedophilia at the highest levels, there is a satanic cult at the highest levels, maybe focus on other things? What's your advice to the viewer? Because it is traumatizing material.
Right. I mean, people have various sensitivities. I personally don't want to watch videos of them torturing and killing children, or read about it, or even think about it. I mean, I'm a mother. I have 2 children. I can't believe the horror. By the way, I personally met with victims of satanic abuse by the elites. Some of them are in the media. I personally met with them. I heard the stories. And out of compassion, I want to hear those stories, because I want them to understand that I hear and understand what they're saying. And I have compassion, and I want justice for them. But I also advise people, look, use your own discretion. You may get very traumatized by this if you're not prepared, if you haven't experienced or haven't seen it or discussed it before. And so, but I think it is important for people to also actually pay attention and see the names that are being named and things that are being done and how things were done. I recently recommended, there's another author on Substack, he goes by, is anonymous, but I know he's been on podcasts, and he goes by escape key, like an escape key on a computer. And so he writes really wonderful content. Wonderful. It's very well researched, very well written content. He wrote an extensive review of what these files revealed without, huge amount of horror show. And so that kind of material, I recommend people to review and understand what's going on. Now, in case of our case in Amsterdam, actually the material delivered a gift to us. Admission in writing from Bill Gates that they pre-planned the pandemics and they were, planning to profit off of it. So exactly what the case alleges. So we were like, wow, I can't believe he was stupid enough to actually put it in writing.
Yeah, that the arrogance of that, and we'll move into that. But Michael, first your reaction to this Epstein file drop, and you had an interesting one you sent me involving General Petraeus as well. Could you just allude to that, Michael?
Right. I mean, we've got Sasha on, so I want to definitely hear what she has to say about her case. But there's so much to talk about. For instance, on the Epstein files, like these torture videos, I don't want to watch that stuff. At some point, we see that it's got a forked tongue. We see that it's got the eyes of a cobra. We see that it's got scales on its nose. I don't need to count every scale on the snake. At some point, action just needs to be taken. At some point, that's it. We've seen enough. And if they're not doing anything about it, it's because that is who they are. I mean, Trump is one of them. We have to just get past all this. Maybe he's the good guy. He is not the good guy, period. He is one of them, right? And that's why nothing's happening. He's appointed people. It's not even him. He's just a condom for them, right? He's something that will come and go. Trump will come and go, and then he'll be replaced by somebody else. He's one of the puppets. Now, let me say something. This may come out of left field, but years ago, and some of the stuff I'm talking about, it's been in the news quite a lot. I tracked down a cult in India and Nepal and California and some other places, but mostly India, Nepal, and California. And it's called Aghor, Aghor, Aghor. And Aghor is a subset of Hinduism, but these people practice cannibalism. They practice everything, right? I was talking with Lars the other night about this last week. Masako and I were talking with Lars, and I was describing these Aghoris. There are Americans involved and whatnot. They believe that God is perfect, or the gods, and therefore everything created by God is perfect. So if you're disgusted by anything, you're disgusted by God. So you should do anything, right? Nothing is off limits. And they think that you'll get the ultimate power, immortality, and everything else by just doing every sort of evil thing, right? Now, Americans have joined this cult. I tracked them down hard. I mean, I tracked down a lot of them. I interviewed a lot of them, right? I'm telling you, these people that, like on Epstein Island and whatnot, and Trump, they might not even know the name Aghor or Aghori, but that's what they are. In fact, I messaged to an Indian photographer the other day. His name is Prashant Panjari, and he lives in Goa. He used to be a Time magazine photographer. He'll probably see this. And I said, you know what, Prashant, these people, actually Prashant was there when I had gotten one of the Americans released, an American Aghori released from prison. I was questioning him more in India. I got him released in India. Prashant was there making photos that day, actually, for 2 days. And so I messaged to Prashant. I said, these people running the American government are just, they're just Aghoris wearing ties. And he agreed. He immediately agreed. I mean, he's Indian. He's seen the Aghoris. He was with me physically, right? And I mean, that's what they are. They are absolutely evil. There is nothing they won't do. And I mean nothing. In fact, they will want to do the worst things possible because that's how they think they get the most power. They get the most power by doing the most evil, right? It's called Aghor, Aghor. If you web search my name in Aghor, you'll see an article that I wrote for some magazine many years ago. And in any case, I need to write a book about it because that's what I'm seeing now. This is Aghor.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree that this is so varieties of satanic underpinning. Like the varieties of cults with varieties of Satanism, essentially, like you were describing. It's they have different names. I'm sure, yes, the what you're describing is very accurate, but there are various indigenous religions of the same manner, which endorse cannibalism, endorse torture, rape, all sorts of things, incest. And defend that, and call it, it's our religious belief, or and they will invert the good and the inversion of good and into evil, and saying, well, no. So there are varieties of this. There's Luciferianism, and also the Epstein's cult. Well, it's not a cult. He had I think the Escape Key author called it very well. He was a switchboard. Yeah, it's a switchboard for this whole system of control, blackmail, trafficking of various sorts, profiteering of this, these people, the people that they recruited, they're recruiting and then grooming through the ranks to put in positions of high power. Ultimately, the way they screen them is by these principles that you described. Is what lines will you cross? And the ones that will cross every single line that exists and you can imagine will proceed to the highest levels of power. And people who are not corruptible, not blackmailable, have principles and morals, and will do no harm to other human beings, those are the ones that they will exclude. You won't even be an assistant to scheduling phone calls for them. So that's how they groom everyone to be in this religion together and to commit harm. And that's how we're always questioning, well, how can these people do these awful things? And, why don't they see the data? Why don't they see the suffering? And we go back to them. We go to these Maha leaders now who are appointed by Trump, who is, I love your analogy, Michael, is a condom for those people.
Yeah.
A replaceable thing, but we're going to the people that he appointed as health leaders and saying, but look at the data, but look at the injuries, but why can't you do something? I'm sick and tired of this. I'm not going and begging them anymore. I'm just pointing at their hypocrisy every time I have an opportunity, so that at least a few other people can see it and wake up.
Sasha, that's extraordinary. Yeah, Michael, you
Sasha nailed it. I mean, when she's when she was just describing, like the ones who will do the maximum evil, those are the ones that get promoted. That's exactly right. The Agoris that I was tracking, I mean, I don't know why I knew it was going to be important at some point in the future. I sensed it. I was like, I need to study these guys. In fact, when I tracked down one of them from Texas, his name was Gary Rayburn Stevenson. He was born on December 3rd, 1950 in Houston. So his name was, but he changed his name to Garadas Ramasittanatha. I tracked him for 6 months, and I finally found him in India. And I walked in, and there he was in a restaurant. And actually, I didn't expect to find him there. I'd been tracking for 6 months, and I finally found him. And at some point, he said, "Michael, Archangel, are you here to kill me?" I mean, he actually, straight up. And I said, I haven't made up my mind yet. And but I tracked him for 6 months, and finally found him. He's one of the most evil people that I've ever met. And he is exactly what these people are, except they have more money. They have jets. Gary didn't have a jet. He lived in India. He was from Houston. He came from a wealthy family, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's extraordinary what you said, Sasha, too, because I think it reminds people that the power has to come back to us. But what does that mean? What does this look like? Because with the overwhelm of 3 million files and people saying, well, at least Trump's put out that. Well, there were 6 million files and more. What has he not put out? Remember that. What has been redacted? Remember that. He's certainly not playing an open hand. But the big question that arises is, what can we do? And before we move into your case, Sasha, what's your advice to the individual who says, there's nothing I can do? And there's a wonderful meme, there's nothing I can do, said 7 billion people, if we all combine. But Sasha, your advice, and then Michael, and then we're going to go into your case, Sasha.
Well, the number one thing that every individual can do is seek and tell and speak the truth. That's what that we have full power to do that, 100% control of that. And from that, you establish the beachhead from which you can proceed. Without that, you're nothing. You're floating in space, you are untethered, and you are subject to capture by the enemy and subjugation into some sort of a cult like this, right? Because, well, it feels better. They offer you belonging, they offer you protection, they offer you some opportunities to advance. It's very seductive. But I'm telling you, you have to, first of all, ground yourself in truth. And seeking the truth is a lot of work because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of distraction, there's a lot of propaganda and controlled narratives and all sorts of things. But your freedom begins in the head. It begins in your own understanding of reality as accurate as you can master. That's your job. That's what God put you on this earth to do. And once you have that beachhead, then you can proceed to figuring out strategies. Once you learn this, you will see, it will be revealed to you what the next step will be. You will understand what the next step will be. But first, focus on that. And that's what you can control. It's 100% in your control. Nobody can invade that. And then, you will see what you can do.
Michael.
Right. And, Sasha has said it very clearly, actually. First of all, they depend on us just going along. If you don't go along, like my grandmother used to say, the devil always trying to make a deal. Never do a deal with the devil. Don't even walk into the devil's shop, right? Because, just stay away, right? And because there's always going to be enticements. And at the end of the day, they tell us what they're going to do. They tell us. And they depend on us saying, okay, you told us, and now you're doing it. Now you're jabbing billions of people with this thing, and they're dying all around us. And people are still calling it a vaccine. Many people still don't even call it by the accurate word. Right. So first of all, and one thing that's very important is we don't give away words just in the name of peace. In other words, you know exactly what I'm saying. You both know exactly what I'm saying because you talk about it. We can't give them a word like, oh, okay, we'll just call it vaccine so that we don't have an argument. No, we're going to argue right now. It's not a vaccine. If you're going to call it a vaccine, this conversation is over until we settle that part. Right. There's no need to go further down the road of wrong words.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, I wanted to add one more thing is that I have arguments like this with dear friends, and these are peaceful arguments. But the debate is that the assigning of guilt and responsibility to a small group of people, I think it's a wrong approach. Blaming somebody like Fauci, blaming blaming Hillary or Biden or Trump or somebody visible in a position of power and to whom the media pays a lot of attention and saying, oh, that's the evil guy. That because of him, all of this, but they're absolving their immediate surrounding, which is their relatives, their friends, the pediatrician that they took their children to get poisoned, their primary care physician who bullied them into a vaccine that poisoned them. Well, those are good people. These are pillars of the community. They're respected doctors. They're wonderful individuals. Look at this favorite Maha puppet, who is such a nice, very, very kind person. I just can't think that he is evil, while the guy is lying through his teeth to you and pushing the policies and funding the poison and doing all these actions. But no, he's just a nice person. I met him at the luncheon and he was so great and he was so listening and he was, I am sick of this. I'm sick of this. All of those people are, every individual has to take responsibility for what happened. No, you're not a good person until you do that, until you take responsibility, until you call out the bullshit to the face of that pediatrician who poisoned your child. You tell them that they're committing evil, that they're the foot soldiers of evil. And from there on, we can start the healing. Until we're like, this is just like, a group of like 2-5 people who are responsible, the rest are great. No, we're never going to progress anywhere.
I'm going to start using foot soldiers of evil. I'm writing it down. Yeah. That's exactly right.
But it's
I just
brilliant.
put that arrow in my quiver.
But it's absolutely brilliant. And we do want to cover what you've been doing up in Sweden, Michael, in this interview. But let's move in to what you are doing, Sasha, as that woman saying, if it's to be, it is up to me. And because you are such an extraordinary woman, and because you are so inordinately brave, and you have the intellectual firepower, along with Catherine Watt, you have put together a court case that the whole world needs to be aware of and be watching on March the 9th. So for the beginner who isn't aware of what you've done, just can you give us an overview, and then we'll dig into it a little bit more, Sasha. What's happening on the 9th?
Right. So I didn't start the case, and I'm one of the expert witnesses that was invited by the attorneys who were helping the plaintiffs in the Netherlands. And so there are actually two cases. They're probably going to merge going forward. But the original case was filed by 7 people in the Netherlands who were injured by COVID shots. These were all Pfizer, and since then, one of the victims already died from their injuries. So we have 6 original plaintiffs. And that case was filed sometime in 2023. It was going through lower courts, as usual. The courts are extremely slow and try to slow roll this until as many people as possible get poisoned. And so about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, I was approached, and also Catherine Watt was approached by this law group asking us if we would be expert witnesses in this case. We agreed. At that time, Francis Boyle was also one of the expert witnesses. He agreed to testify and specifically to the fact that these shots were bioweapons. And he's a bioweapons expert. Actually, he co-authored the Bioweapons Convention and related law. 3 weeks after agreeing to testify, and he was vocal about this, he presented on podcasts, he put it in writing. 3 weeks later, he was dead suddenly. And we know he did not take these shots. And I am not satisfied. They're saying it's natural causes. I'm not satisfied because he was perfectly healthy. He wasn't very old, and he was teaching full time. And it's just the coincidence is very, very strange to me. But that aside, so now, minus Francis Boyle, we have 5 expert witnesses. It's myself, Catherine Watt, Catherine Austin Fitz, Michael Yon, former Pfizer executive in the UK, and Joe Sanson, who's a PhD in Florida. And so we're the expert witness group. And in the second case proceeding, Peter Stassen wanted to utilize a procedure available to every citizen in the Netherlands, which is a consultation with the judge about how to prosecute a particularly complex case, which this is. It's a very complex case. And as part of this procedure, the plaintiffs can bring whoever they wish as expert witnesses. It's not adversarial. It's just a consultation with the court, which every citizen is entitled to. And he said, technically you cannot lose this procedure, but we lost it in the lower court. When he tried to do it in the lower court, the court denied us. The court took defense statements, defense rebuttal or rejections, objections to us, which defense prepared the State of the Netherlands lawyers, Pfizer lawyers, and Bill Gates lawyers. So they prepared objections to us individually as experts. And in my case, they went through, I don't know, I've written maybe 1 million words now and presented in various podcasts. So they went through all of that, and they pulled a quote that says, "We need to investigate this and we need to bring justice." And said, "See, she's biased. That's why she's disqualified."
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
And that's how the lower courts rejected us. So
the whole essence of the judicial system is about bringing justice.
I'm asking for investigation and justice in court, and therefore I'm biased. Now, so Peter has been prosecuting this and appealing, and so this is the courts of appeals now in Amsterdam, who said, okay, fine, you can have your consultation with the court, and so I believe this is what we're doing on March 9th. So we are allowed to come in to the court. Not sure yet. So they gave us sufficient time. So originally they wanted to give very little time. Peter negotiated an hour total time of speaking time for the plaintiffs. And they said, you can bring whoever you wish. And we still don't know if the experts are actually going to be speaking or we're going to be available for questions or what's going to happen. But I'm going to be there in person. Catherine Austin Fitz is going to be there in person, and at the minimum, the rest of the witnesses will be by Zoom, and there's also going to be a live stream we were promised by the court.
That's wonderful. And then there is also going to be a press conference. Can you just address that?
And then right after, I think the hearing finishes around 4 p.m. At 5 p.m., we have a press conference, and everyone is invited. You're invited, of course. Please come attend. And I've published instructions how to register on my Substack. I just basically email Peter's assistant, and she will register the press.
Peter Stassen is your attorney, and I should here address the issue of Arno von Kessel, because this case was last in court in Leeuwarden in Holland, in the Netherlands, and he was mysteriously arrested and sort of evaporated. There's been very little news that I can find about him. What are you aware of as far as that other lawyer, who's really now a political prisoner on a level with Rainer Fulmich or Julian Assange, is he not?
Pretty much, in my estimation. As I said, I only interacted with him once when he was still on this case, and he invited us actually as witnesses, as the primary counsel. And shortly after that, yes, he was mysteriously arrested, first without any charges, put into maximum security prison. Later on, I believe some charges were produced, but they're very strange to me. It's kind of like he was somewhere seen with some people, but there's no, that wouldn't justify holding somebody in a maximum security prison, I don't think. So, but since then, we haven't had any information really about it, and I believe part of it was motivated to damage this case, which of course, now we have only one attorney. Of course, it damaged the case, but there was no charges, as far as we know, brought against Arno that are related to this case at all. So we're trying to keep it separate to make sure that nobody is confused about that part.
I was in a lawfare case, Sasha, in New Zealand on a much smaller scale, but still horrific, with a district court judge who found me guilty of a ridiculous charge. Now, it was the public's eyes on that case, and New Zealand is pushing back en masse against that ridiculous decision the district court judge came up with that resulted in my appeal being successful. Why I say that is, it is so essential that the eyes of the world are on this case, because the one thing they hate is scrutiny. The one thing judges hate when they're delivering corruption is the scrutiny of the people of the world who can see there's a corrupt judge. So that's what's needed. We need people to really to share this everywhere, to come in from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on March the 9th and be tuning in from around the world. And they need to see that there are massive numbers following this case, do they not, Sasha?
Of course, yes. Of course, this is such an important case. People want to position us as conspiracies, as I've read this. I said I've read the objections of the defense against us as, well, these people are not experts. Oh my God, they're conspiracies. Oh, they're subscribed to all. Well, no, we cannot have somebody who thinks that there was a crime committed here potentially to be even near this, because these are life-saving vaccines. So this kind of narrative, of course, damages any accountability or investigation into what happened. And we need everyone to pay attention. We need a lot of press to come in. We unfortunately have no budget whatsoever. Luckily, I have some subscribers who very generously contributed so far to cover some of the travel expenses, and I am absolutely grateful for that. I don't want to beg people for money. I'm paying my own costs. I'm helping some other journalists to get there because they don't have any money, and that's all I can do. If other people feel inclined, absolutely. But most importantly, we need you to share. We need you to watch. We need you to ask your favorite truth teller, your favorite journalist, to pay attention to this. To at least, write us an email, ask us a question, publish something. If you can make it to the Netherlands, please come.
That's wonderful. And actually, on that note, Sasha, I will just put up your account. Where can people donate to you? Can you just mention that? Because we'll put the details up here on screen.
So I ask people to please follow me on Substack, and there's a pinned post there on my page which says how you can support me, different ways you can support me. You can even buy my art if you want to.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
It helps.
Every little bit helps, and what you are doing is for the world, you and Catherine Watt.
Yeah.
So, Michael, your reaction hearing this, and sadly, Michael, you are in Europe, but your visa runs out just a few days before this. You won't be able to be there, will you? It's such a shame.
Yeah, my visa runs out a week before, so otherwise I would definitely be there. In fact, Masako and I were just in Leeuwarden recently in Netherlands, and we were there actually researching something. In any case, what is happening, I'm going to be sharing it when Sasha's there and her team is there, so we'll just be sharing it, and because she's on the front lines, and you are as well, as you know. And so, again, I think some of the advice that we've heard here in the last 30 minutes, basically from you and Sasha, like, just don't go along with them. That's massive. Just don't go along with them is a massive impediment to their plans.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't go along and be vocal about this also if you have an opportunity. And I absolutely agree with you. Don't give them the words. Don't give them the words, because that's where, again, this is where the liberation or enslavement starts, with the words that you say.
Well, I remember
words
Sasha.
Are the atomic.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Michael. Yeah.
Thank you. Words are the atomic structures of truth and lies. So we have to start with the right atoms. I mean, we can't make water out of lithium and sulfur. It's got to be H2O, right? That's it. If we're going to have pure water.
I'm actually publishing on water not being H2O.
Uh-oh.
Apparently, I found some really good evidence that water is just water.
It's its own thing.
It's its own thing. Yeah, it's its own thing.
Water
Sorry,
is a
Sasha.
special thing.
Yeah.
I've read a lot about it, actually.
Yeah.
So you have to explain that a little bit deeper, Sasha.
Yeah, it can be modeled as H2O.
Really? Yeah. Water is a sort of entity. Certainly here in New Zealand, Maori apply for rivers to be registered as beings, yeah, it's interesting.
It's not as far out as people might think. It's so.
Very interesting.
Water is special. Gangama, that's what they call many people call rivers mother, like in Thai language and Hindi, mother.
Yeah, because it's a digression from our main topic, but I've written a bit about water. I'm fascinated by water topic, and so this is one upcoming article where I'll be profiling somebody else's work that pretty convincing that water is water. And but yes, if you think about it, water is everywhere. It's a medium. It's a medium that permeates entire world. Even in the driest desert, inside the driest rock, there is water, and because it's an energy medium. It's a medium that absorbs the energy and transforms it, delivers it, and this is what we actually run on: water.
Interesting. I read a very interesting book on reading water just maybe 4 years ago when I was in Panama. I was just watching the waves and the currents, and I'm like, there's so much information that flows through water. It is its own thing.
It's its own thing. It's its own thing, and it has so many incredible qualities that are completely glossed over in today's science teaching curricula.
I'm drinking it.
Oh yeah, right. So I also I've been doing I've been writing and researching about electrolytes, because we do need a variety of electrolytes, and so it's a very fascinating subject to health, and in fact, so many conditions, like acute conditions especially, are alleviated just by water either intake or IV. Those are like number one things that will make you feel better, will cure a whole bunch of things, including infections and dehydration, acidosis, all sorts of things, just by water. Water alone is medicine.
When you two come visit Masako and me in Okinawa, we'll take you to a village called Ogimi. It's where they have this water. It's one of those blue villages where people live so long, and they say a lot of it may be related to that water. So we've been out there at night in the jungle getting the water. Yeah,
the source of water makes so much difference to your health. A huge amount of difference. Yeah. Yes. So I'm not surprised that they have these people longevity in a good water source.
There's a whole other fascinating interview here. There's someone I want to connect you both with.
We don't need jabs. We need good water.
We need good water.
Exactly. We need good, clean water, and that's all you need. And sunshine, and good food. Yep. That's all.
and actually, that's true. Fasting on water, if you take it carefully, and again, listen to your own body. But fasting on water can be absolutely incredible for restoring health. But you have to, do it advisedly and do it sensibly. Listen to your body. Have you both heard of Emoto, the Japanese scientist? Michael, the wonderful. He was extraordinary. He froze ice, but before he froze the ice, he spoke to a glass of water, saying words like "I love you" or "I hate you," "You are vile," and all of the abusive words. Now, when he froze the water and sliced the ice, the crystalline forms in the one that was given love was perfect. The one that was given abuse was completely distorted. He was an extraordinary thinker because he thought outside the box to do these experiments.
This next series of photographs are the work of Japanese researcher Mr. Masaru Emoto from his book, The Message from Water. Mr. Emoto's work provides factual evidence that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect the molecular structure of water. Please remember that water comprises over 70% of a mature human body and covers the same amount on our planet. Water is the very source of all life. This photo shows the beautifully formed geometric design of the Yushi Spring water. This next photo is from the Shimanto River, the last clean spring in Japan. Notice the extraordinary geometric forms. The fact that the molecular structure of water can be affected by our consciousness, our intent, and our sounds is extremely important. This photo is from the Mount Cook Glacier in New Zealand. Mr. Emoto has been visually documenting these molecular changes in water by means of his photographic techniques. He freezes droplets of water, then examines them under a dark field microscope that has photographic capabilities. His work clearly demonstrates the diversity of the molecular structure of water and the effects of the environment upon the structure of the water. This photo is from the fountain in Lourdes, France. This photo is from contaminated water from the Yodo River in Japan. In this photo, we can compare the contaminated water with clean stream water. Look at the difference. Mr. Emoto decided to see what effects music would have upon the structure of water. He placed distilled water between two speakers for several hours while playing different music and then photographing the crystals that formed after the water was frozen. This photo is of water being exposed to Beethoven's Pastorale. This photo is the effect of Bach's air for the G string on the water. This photo is water exposed to Chopin's Farewell Song. This next photo is water being exposed and affected to music that was designed for healing. This photo is of water being exposed to the Kawachi folk dance. This photo shows the effect of heavy metal music upon the water. Here now we can compare the effects of healing versus heavy metal music and what happens to the water molecules. Mr. Emoto decided to see how thoughts and words affected the formation of untreated distilled water crystals by typing words onto paper and then taping this paper onto glass bottles overnight. This photo shows the effects of the words, "Thank you." This next photo shows the effects of the words, "love" and "appreciation." This photo shows the effects of the words, "You make me sick, I will kill you." And here we can compare the effects of "thank you" with the "you make me sick, I will kill you." Very, very different geometric forms being incurred through the intention. Now this photo is of a very polluted and toxic water from the Fujiwara Dam. Here now is the same water from the Fujiwara Dam after a Buddhist monk had offered a prayer over it. Prayer, that sound coupled with intention, seems to have an extraordinary ability of restoring water to its natural, harmonious, geometric symmetry. And in this photo we can compare the toxic water and then the effects of praying over the water.
Can I say one more thing on that? What you're saying is important. Misako and I were in this restaurant the other day, and they're playing this poison noise that they call music. And we're like, this is poisoning our everything about us. These poison sounds. It's not music. It's literally poison that flows through the air.
Gosh, that's interesting, Michael, because Emoto then tested water. So the music of Mozart played to water. The crystalline form was perfection. The music of angry rap, you know, talking about I'll rape your mother and all of those horrible, really distorted ideas that were put into rap music in some forms of it, the crystals would be completely, again, distorted and not formed properly in that music. So I won't eat in a restaurant where there's terrible music. I'll either say, can you change the music? Or
it's poison.
It makes so much sense to me. I totally agree with this because I also published separately. You can look it up on YouTube. There are fascinating videos. It's called sonoluminescence. Sonoluminescence is you can make a star in a jar of water by sending sound waves at certain frequency. And also there's a bunch of lectures, including by Rupert Sheldrake, who is also on Substack. He's a known science writer. Unfortunately, he buys vaccine BS, but this part is very good. He talks about how sound waves can structure water, and so they'll put some particles to visualize it, and or sand particles on a sonar, like a little drum that you can put like different sound frequencies through, and it will create at certain frequencies. It will create very beautiful, similar to the ice structures, very beautiful shapes, very beautiful geometric shapes. And they are very reminiscent of a lot of natural shapes, like tortoise shell designs or leopard spots, and things like that. And so they're saying, okay, there's definitely something going on with sound vibrations that are going through matter that has water in it, right? And so that's maybe how our bodies are structured. I tend to believe that this is the voice of God that gives us shape through the shape of water. You may believe different things, but clearly when we speak and the resonating frequencies of different tonalities, emotion, content. They definitely influence people. This is the only thing that programs your mind. There's no other form of mind control, is by just words. And words carry so much. And words are sonar energy going through water.
I'd love to see snowflakes formed under different sound in music and to see if there's any difference.
Well, and
there's definitely going to be difference.
When you think about it, most of our bodies are water. So you can see how much we can be affected. So Michael, as a former Green Beret, this may interest you. We're remembering, I can't say celebrating, 4 years since we all in New Zealand turned up in front of Parliament, in front of Jacinda Ardern. She never walked down the steps and spoke to the people, but it was desperate New Zealanders saying, you are ruining our lives, our businesses are going, my child's health is compromised by these poison shots. Please stop, Jacinda. In the end, she turned a massive police force on New Zealanders in early March. That's another story. However, it looks as if the New Zealand police rolled out an experimental, I think at that stage, force on us, and that was sound machines. There were some very big boxes, and there were definitely many who report, well, I can say this, definitely many who report physical problems. For example, hair falling out, a lot of blisters on the face or on the, I had a lot of blisters on my arms. They could aim these sound machines. And I think there's a huge need to investigate the sort of weaponry that these globalists are willing to use on the people. Are you aware of any of that, Michael?
Well, acoustic weapons have definitely been a thing for a while. Now, I don't know exactly how they work or how many types there are or how they've been deployed and employed.
No, they're not telling us.
When I was in the Hong Kong in 2019, in 2020, I finally got kicked out of Hong Kong in 2020. But when I was in Hong Kong, the Hong Kongers were saying that they're employing some sort of acoustic weapons in the protest. Now, I didn't see them myself, but they were sure they were out there. But I don't know. But the bottom line is they definitely exist. This is something that's been experimented with for generations. It's nothing new, actually.
Yeah, I've seen descriptions of these weapons. Yeah, I believe they use sound waves in the infrared range, so it's below the hearing range in frequency. And those they can definitely produce damage. They probably produce some sort of internal trauma. It could be, depending on where it's, the majority of it go. If it's in the head, it may create brain trauma. You may have the blisters because, there's an internal bruising and then the body expels it. And so you have a blister. So that's, as I said, because it's true that you can send sonar waves through water and generate particular response.
I think at this stage we need to move to the fact that, Michael, it was Sasha who first opened my eyes to the truth that this was a bioweapon. We were in the middle of an interview and she used that phrase, and I had never contemplated that before. But this is really, and then you went on, Sasha, to say, and that clip went viral, but you went on to say this is DARPA. DARPA's handprints are all over this, aren't they? All over these. If they are willing to poison half of humanity, what are they not willing to do? To me, there's no conscience now within the military-industrial complex. I don't trust one bit of what they're doing. Is that too hyperbolic, Michael? What's your reaction?
Oh, they're agories. I mean, let's just call them what they are. By a different name, same name, whatever. Their behavior is that of agories. They have zero limits. And in fact, as Sasha mentioned earlier, they get sort of points for being the most evil. They're in competition for most evil. It's really, one thing I've learned in the study of cults is you never see the cult that you're in. And in a severe cult, there is nothing people won't do. And I mean absolutely nothing. Like, for instance, a mother jabbing her own child and putting it on Instagram. This is normal in cults. Look at, Jim Jones, people drinking poison drinks and that sort of thing. I mean, death cults where people, commit mass suicide or mass homicide. This is absolutely, weaponizable and constantly is. The power of the mind and the power to control the mind is something that men and women have fought to bring to a high art for millennia.
When you were in the military, Michael, did you see many whom you would regard as psychopaths in the upper echelons of that system?
Not when I was in special forces, because they're actually looking for those types to not let them in, actually. But at the higher levels, as I've gotten older and seen a lot more things, I think the higher levels selects for that. Actually, there's I don't know if it's an intentional selection process or what, but clearly a lot of the people, for instance, they'll do whatever they're told to do. I mean, ordinary men, like the book, right? I've seen this on the ground level though too. For instance, let's talk about the U.S. border. When the borders are wide open and people are invading by the millions, literally, and the border patrollers they're blaming, as Sasha might have mentioned earlier, but in regard to other things, blaming somebody else, blaming Mayorkas, who shares this part of the blame. But in reality, the border patrol people are the ones loading up the buses while they're blaming the Mexican cartels. And I would ask them many times, you're blaming the Mexican cartels. Are you the Mexican cartel? Because you're the one right in front of me now on my video loading them up, right? I mean, I was physically seeing it with my own eyes, like talking distance away, not shouting. They're loading up the buses and invading our own country. Yeah, but I got to get my retirement. Okay, so you made a deal with the devil. My grandmother would say, "Well, you made a deal with the devil," and those deals never turn out well.
Exactly. That's exactly the type of behavior. If a few of those agents started putting up a fight, get together and start putting up a fight about this and start being vocal about this, guess what? That crossing, at least that crossing would be closed or slowed down, or something would happen. And it will also help others to see this and stand up. This is how we are each other's keepers. We're each other's brothers and sisters, and we're supposed to watch out for each other and be a good example and not fall for these satanic cults and then give an excuse. Oh, well, these other bad guys are doing it. I'm a good guy,
Right. It's the same behavior in different domains, whether it's the death jab, which is obviously a WMD, or the just wild open borders, which is another WMD, or attacks on the food supply.
A weapon of mass destruction. Yep.
That's right. Weapons, and whether it's attacks on the food supply, which is there's going to be a price to pay for that in the future. I mean, it's the same behavior in different domains.
Yeah.
And the climate poisoning as well is such a weapon of mass destruction. I think there are many people starting to wake up to that now. Back to the case. Let's get into the details of the case, Sasha, because this is important. This is a case where, yes, I used the wrong phrase saying you prepared it, but I think what I mean is this is a case where the preparation for the case is so easy to follow thanks to your Substack and that of Catherine Watt. It is really useful to follow both Substacks. Tell us a little bit about Catherine, who with whom you work. She has also a formidable intellect, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah, she's amazing. She is basically encyclopedia of law, relevant law on the vaccinations, especially in the United States. But this applies globally because now all these infectious disease standards and regulatory practices have been propagated throughout the world through different regulatory agencies. And so she has compiled huge amount of, it's like a five-part series. You can publish several books on this, of the law going back to late 1700s, how it evolved. And that was a huge help to me because I was coming in from my knowledge of regulatory practices in the US, especially, and in Europe, and drug development and how to read the manufacturing documentation, which I did. And, but I still couldn't understand how all these awful things that I saw, and I knew about, because even I came from the pharmaceutical industry, I knew about gene therapies. I knew that they were super toxic and that the regulatory guidance was very severe. There was a lot of risks that they were requiring manufacturers to test for. And no other drug, no other gene therapy was on the market even close to what Moderna and Pfizer were developing. And yet in late 2020, we hear from Trump administration that Operation Warp Speed is now going to be putting out these mRNA vaccines for everyone, and including pregnant women and children. My hair stood up. I was like, I cannot believe what I'm hearing. I cannot believe that no other regulatory or pharmaceutical professional has the same thought that I do. That this is just awful and completely, abhorrent, until I ran into Michael Yon, and I was like, oh, there are two of us, with the same idea. And but in any case, I knew it was super toxic. I knew how to read the documents. I saw all the data started coming in, and it was just as awful as I thought it would be. And I knew all of them knew, and I knew the FDA knew what they were doing, and yet they were lying. And I couldn't understand how they were getting away with this until I ran into Catherine and her legal analysis. And the answer is, well, they got away with this because they had pre-planned this. And over about 20 years, they put the laws in the US and worldwide, making all of this absolutely legal. So the criminal cartel that pre-planned these pandemics for profit, for which now we have evidence from Epstein files that Bill Gates and JP Morgan were setting it up. Setting up this club to profit off of pandemics. Well, at the same time, the effort was going on in the US Congress to enable this structure, and it's called public-private partnerships, and it's called pandemic emergency response measures. In 2005, so 20 years ago, they pushed through U.S. Congress in the middle of the night on Christmas as part of appropriations bill for Katrina relief. So, holding it hostage, nobody can say no. They pushed this law, PrEP Act. The PrEP Act, we call it license to kill. It makes all of this absolutely legal. And it provides ironclad liability shield to any administrator, manufacturer, deliverer, so-called covered person under PrEP Act using covered countermeasure, which is these shots, the remdesivir, even masks and swabs and PCR tests, anything that's used in relation to the declared pandemic emergency, which is COVID, and 8 other things that we currently have declared as pandemic emergencies that are under HHS PrEP Act declarations. And so the way this is all so they set it all up. Now we have history going back 20 years ago when they were pre-planning this and changing the laws to enable this. The way the structure was set up, it wasn't used as it was used in 2020. It was used sparingly here and there, and primarily doing test runs on the military, like the Gulf War, where they injected them. That was even before the PrEP Act, but then they would use the same. They would inject service members with experimental vaccines. Well, they're all experimental, but basically the vaccines that are under pandemic emergency declarations, these other 8, as I was saying, which includes anthrax, Zika, Ebola, and something else. And they would inject people if they're deploying them to a certain area. They have a justification to say, well, those evil doers, the ISIS, the whatever, they're going to use these, Gulf viruses because they have all these rogue scientists working on Gulf viruses. And we can't, also we need for military readiness, we really need to buy these unregulated poisons and inject our service members with. That's how it was used. So the public wasn't aware at all. I wasn't aware at all. I didn't know at all this existed. And then in 2020,
so Sasha, would that have been Gulf War syndrome? Could potentially have been caused
Gulf
in the
War
military
syndrome
by the jabs?
It's anthrax. It's anthrax jabs. Yes. So anthrax vaccine, which is a horrific concoction containing 6 doses. 6 doses to achieve your, military readiness. I mean, you have to be kidding. And yes, of course, it causes the Gulf syndrome, but that was preceding. Actually, I believe that was kind of inspiration for them to create the PrEP Act, because they got caught. They got caught and they were like, okay, this is a loophole that we need to close. And they did close it in 2005 with the PrEP Act. But they continued after the PrEP Act, and they started, using these Ebola, Zika, and other things out of the, main public view places. They would go, they often, Bill Gates goes on some missions to inject vaccines in India or Africa or Brazil. And, so they were doing it in those kinds of small deployments and operations. But I was saying in 2020, they went full scale global, all the same. Also, by then, they already harmonized international laws, WHO, all that. So Europe has a similar set of laws. Canada has a similar. New Zealand has a similar set of laws. The only thing they don't have is PrEP Act, but the effect of PrEP Act was achieved in all these other countries kind of synthetically through a variety of emergency measures and then the contracts that they signed with the pharmaceutical companies. So anyway, so that was kind of that's kind of the history, and I mean I'm rambling now, but that's why Catherine's analysis and her understanding of the PrEP Act and the implications of the PrEP Act and how exactly it works, how it is a license to kill, how important it is, was an eye-opener for me. And it connected the dots finally and said, okay, now I understand how they're getting away with this. And since then, I've been very, very vocal. I spoke to RFK Jr. several times, both recorded on video and in private conversations. I've been demanding, he totally understands the enormity, the monstrosity of the PrEP Act. And the law says, even though I know in practice he is beholden to Trump, who's beholden to these satanic clubs. In what the law says, he is the only person who can terminate PrEP Act declaration today in 15 minutes. Because HHS secretary is the one who makes these declarations. The declarations are issued solely on his opinion. So I'm telling you, the US law is very clear. It is now, today, RFK Jr.'s sole opinion that we have a COVID pandemic emergency, that we have anthrax pandemic emergency, that we actually have a smallpox pandemic emergency that's going to last until 2032. That's his personal opinion. That's how the law is written. He won't acknowledge it. Nobody in MAHA will tell you that. Nobody in MAHA will even breathe that PrEP Act exists, or is it some sort of an issue, or something. They will all talk about gold standard science, and they will tell you that you need to stop eating ultra processed food. That's what you're gonna hear from them. You're not gonna hear this. But we can stop mRNA. We can stop all this nonsense. RFK just needs to write a memo to the Federal Register. That's it.
Sasha, what would be the effect of withdrawing that PrEP Act and all of these other approvals, government approvals? What would happen overnight?
What would happen is the manufacturers would not ship the vaccines. In fact, in their contracts that have been FOIA'd, the military contracts that all the manufacturers received with enormous amounts of money, there is a PrEP Act clause. The PrEP Act clause briefly summarizes what I just said, that you're a covered person using covered countermeasures. We will provide you new liability as long as you follow our orders. But also says that in case that there is no current PrEP Act declaration for this particular condition, then whatever the company has already shipped to the US government is not for human use.
Wow. Michael.
Well, RFK, I mean, he's basically weak trash. I mean, that's the bottom line. Let's just get to that part. You know what I mean? Seriously, the reason he's in that position is because he is weak. If he were strong, he would not be. I read his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, and I thought it was an excellent book. But, but watching his weakness, his public weakness now, it makes me call into question everything that I read, because he, in order to be to do something serious, you must have courage. Cowardice is the seed of treason. And he's not standing up, and he's clearly going along. He's part of the architecture. It's as clear as day. We don't need any further evidence.
Yeah, he's part of the architecture. He actually quoted me in my material, again, this stuff about PrEP Act, in his other book, the Wuhan cover-up. And I thought, I read it and I thought it was great. I thought, when I talked to him, I thought he was a wonderful guy. I thought he was very straightforward, very honest. I was energized when he ran for president. I was supporting him. I was a little bit taken aback when he joined Trump, but I was kind of like, well, okay, yeah, he didn't have much chance as an independent. But he actually delivered the victory to Trump, because that's win vote. Those people who didn't, like myself, I didn't trust Trump. I thought he was a bad guy. We kind of held our nose and said, okay, fine. Well, then what happens? Well, he shows up in the office and walks back everything that he's ever done. Actually, his entire career, his entire legacy is wiped off. And now he is, jumping around doing those ridiculous food commercials, and then, helping pharma deliver more drugs and deliver more, and then protecting them with the PrEP Act shield that he won't remove.
Yeah, I nearly took him to the Darien Gap, actually. He wanted to go down there, and then I'm talking about RFK Jr., and then he mentioned it on a podcast publicly in advance. And I said, I'm not, that's it. I can't take you now. I mean, I can take you in there safely and get you out safely, but not if you tell the world that you're going. That's dangerous for me and my team. And so anyway, I canceled it. I mean, that was, I don't know what to think of the guy other than he's already shown us who he is. When he got into that position, he sold us out. So was he that thing all along? He must be, because, I mean, like you said, he delivered Trump the victory.
Yeah, he delivered Trump. Same goes for all the other high-profile MAHA officials. Jay Bhattacharya, sellout snake, absolute snake. And the Macri. What Macri is doing with FDA is incredibly awful. Basically, and I knew the previous FDA commissioner. Actually, he was my business competitor at some point, and he was very corrupt and crooked. And we actually caught him once with my colleagues publicly on an attempt to create an industry cartel. So I knew the guy was crooked, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's expected. I was hoping for MAHA administration to do, to put somebody in charge who's has a little bit more, integrity. Oh my God, no. I mean, they're the same people, essentially, that's doing the same things.
Sasha, why do you say that about, oh, sorry, Michael, you go.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, just why do you say that about Dr. Jay Bhattacharya? I did speak to him before he was put in that position, and he had gone through a terrible time at Stanford. He'd been really ostracized for speaking out and doing the Great Barrington Declaration. But yeah, I've spoken to Andrew Bridgen, who I put him together with in that interview, and we're both going, when is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya going to take some steps that really mean something to the people of the world who want this nightmare to finish? So why do you call him a snake? I do need to clarify.
Well, because he won't take any steps. He put out editorial opinions. A few months ago, he put out an editorial in Washington Post saying that he doesn't believe there is substantial mRNA vaccine damage. So how is he going to do anything about the victims where he doesn't even believe that there is such a thing? Now, just now, it's circulating on X in his interview with Jan Jekielek from the Epoch Times. Listen to that interview. It's hair raising. Again, he is saying, I have no idea what causes autism, but I'm also highly certain that it's not vaccines. I mean, honestly, yeah, we're hearing the same thing. And it's like this over and over and over again. He allocated, so they made a big fuss about, we are canceling 22 mRNA projects. And I was like, well, this is wonderful. And then in the same move, so those 22 projects amount to $500 million. In the same move, Jay takes that $500 million, pockets it into the NIH to fund Jeffrey Taubenberger's full whole virus flu platform that NIH owns, and Jay Bhattacharya will profit off of because he will get a bonus. And Jeffrey Taubenberger obviously will have royalties. And NIH will have royalties too. So that's $500 million going to the next pandemic on their own little horse here. Then they also, through BARDA, fund another $400 million into some other flu concoctions and mRNAs and what they call biologic, but not vaccine, but it prevents flu. So they want to even manage away from the word vaccine to fool people into injecting these things, but they're funding them. And he is funding, and he's just funneling the money where he will profit most, and whoever is like his friends are going to profit most. While he's going and telling to our face, "Oh, there are no mRNA injuries, and I actually don't know what causes autism."
That's mind-boggling. I saw something the other.
You were talking about these cults in India, right? I have reservations about anybody who's like, "Oh, I'm a Buddhist." And I'm like, okay, what kind of Buddhist?
Right.
I just saw something the other day about biologics are being slipped in. That language, talking about words, Michael, the word biologics is being slipped in instead of vaccines. So if they want somebody to sign documents, you have to watch out now if it says there may be some biologics administered during your operation, because that is a code word for vaccination, and they're trying to hide the word vaccination. This is in itself evidence that they know that the public, the wider world public, is starting to wake up to the evils of vaccination. But this is absolutely horrific. Yeah, Michael.
I wish you could see some of the books that Masako and I have in our private library in Japan. Lars, and we were talking about it a few days ago, last week, and I was showing him some of the photos of our books. For instance, books from the 1880s about smallpox vaccine and how dangerous they are and how that's an impingement on freedom. We're talking 1887, I think. There's quite a few of these. We have probably 15 or more in our library from the 1800s, right? So, that are all about, and these are from even 1798, I think there was one. I'll send it to you when we go offline. They were warning about this stuff way back then. So that these things, and like there's one book by a British doctor, and he goes through the statistics. This is an 1880 something book, and if you were to just change the names and the dates, it would be accurate this morning.
Oh, yeah.
And it was smallpox. It was smallpox.
Smallpox, yeah. There's another book I profiled on rabies, also around the same time. The guy went through a lot of statistics showing that whole Pasteur fear-mongering about rabies was total nonsense. I profiled, this information and this data has been around forever. So what my personal point, where the vaccinations should have completely abandoned as approach to like provide some sort of protection through injection, should have been abandoned right after 1913 Nobel Prize that was awarded to Charles Richet, who demonstrated that you cannot inject proteins safely at all. And you can't figure out who is going to have your bad reaction. So today, they anytime that even when you force them to admit any sort of vaccine harm, the official narrative comes back, oh, it's just inappropriate reaction, or your child had a reaction to a vaccine. So blaming the child, blaming the victim, the parent and the child. Oh, you didn't, now it's also, because you didn't feed him, you gave him ultra-processed food. Oh my God, that's why he had an inappropriate reaction. So it's you are being inappropriate, your child is inappropriate, not our vaccine. Our vaccine is perfect, it's safe and effective. But you had a reaction. Then they also say, wait, now we also figured it out. It's because you have bad genes. Okay, so the next layer of gaslighting and victim blaming is you have bad genes, but we can correct your genes with this other mRNA injection. And it's just so on and so on and so on, I'm sick of it. And these people who are in high positions of power, like Jay Bhattacharya, you are in charge of the global science agency, and you can't be bothered to look up a Nobel Prize winning award in your field. What does it tell you about these experts? They're liars and snakes. That's why I'm calling him a liar and a snake to his face.
And Dr. J, I will send you this interview, and I would very much love to interview you with Michael and with Sasha, if you would be willing to do that interview. I am so disappointed to hear what Sasha is saying. I have not seen that Washington Post article. It breaks our hearts, but I have a new test, I think, for whether a politician is worth voting for, and it's a very simple one. Are you willing to push for the repeal of the, 1986 legislation that gives vaccine manufacturers protection from being sued for faulty products? Because if the products are safe and effective, as the manufacturers say, then they wouldn't they wouldn't need protection because they're producing such fine products. But we, the public, should always have access to being able to sue. So if our politicians or our bureaucrats are not willing to do that, Sasha, I think they already show which side they're on. They're on the side of corruption, are they not?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. They're on the side. They show exactly who they are. And all I'm asking people, believe them. Just believe them, okay? And act like you believe them. Don't kiss up. Don't scream at me. I mean, yeah, you can scream at me. It's fine. You can hate me all you want. But I'm the bad guy because I'm telling them this guy is lying. And actually it's not personal. I never met Jay Bhattacharya. I never did. I also thought he was a nice guy when he was like writing Barrington Declaration. What do I know? But no, I'm reacting to the actions. I'm reacting to what they're saying with their actions and not with their words. And I'm asking also people, please pay attention.
Michael.
This has been so important. And I wish I could be there in Leeuwarden in Netherlands on the 9th, but our visas are running out. We're going to be watching it if you're live streaming anything. If not, we'll just be sharing the links.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you.
And that whole thing of RFKJ and Jay sitting on their hands, I mean, you have to ask, is it because they're in for a fat pay packet? They already are doing well financially.
They're weak men.
Is it because they're being threatened? Yeah. Is it because they're being threatened by big pharma? Will hurt your families? But Andrew Bridgen had a wonderful saying, Michael. He said to me on a number of phone calls, I want to work only with people willing to go all the way. And I said, what do you mean by all the way, Andrew? He said, all the way to death. If that's what it takes, that's how we change our world, to be so fearless that you are willing to die on this hill for this cause of truth to come out. And that is, Michael, isn't it? That's the courage of true men. Imagine the heroism of RFKJ if he did what Sasha advocates. Imagine the write-ups in history books. Imagine what I would tell my great-great-grandchildren. There was this heroic man at a time of a great trial and need in human history, and he stepped forward, and his name was RFKJ. But we won't be saying that, Michael. We won't, will we?
Because he's a coward. He's a coward. I mean, the evidence is clear. Nobody's forcing him to do that because he could easily just say, well, I'm sick again today and I'm not doing it. I'm just not going to take the job. But he did take the job, and he's blocking somebody else from being in that job that may do it, that would do it, that could do it, right? So he took the job. He is clearly our enemy. He is clearly a coward. Cowards are always traitors. There's no exception to that. That's a basic rule of cowardice. If that's a coward, that's going to be a traitor. He's a coward. I'm always cautious of those perfect hair guys that are so, out there, everything's prim and perfect. And then it comes down to the action and they can't put up, and they won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a really interesting moment when we put up the Barry Young New Zealand data, the COVID data. By the way, it totally ties in with the Czech data, Sasha. It's really interesting. And they're still dragging this man, Barry Young, through court over 2 years on. We had just had an election. Barry and I had done 8 weeks of work on this, and we had reached out to a number of epidemiologists to check that we were on track. So we were well prepared. I went round to the house of the man who'd just been appointed the deputy leader of the new government, Winston Peters, very dapper little man, by the way, Michael, always beautifully dressed, very plausible, rather RFK-J-ish. And I knocked on his door because I'd interviewed him there before. I rang him. He'd always picked up to me. I'd done some strong interviews with him. No answer. And I said on that phone call, that message, I said, Winston, I have got a body of data that absolutely shows that these jabs are poisoning the human population and that New Zealanders have suffered enormously. You will be a world hero if you will take this. And I will give it to you and you take all the credit for all the work. We've properly verified it and you can check it with other people. But if you put this out to the world tomorrow, you'll be on Tucker Carlson, you'll be on, I don't know, any of these podcasts. You will be regarded by millions around the world as the one who stopped this going any further because you are in the position you've just been elected to. Nothing. No reply to me, no reply to Barry Young. And RFKJ is on a much grander scale in that same position. RFKJ, you would be such a hero if you would do the right thing. But they won't, Sasha.
You would be a hero if you were a hero. But he's not.
What makes a hero,
Just
Michael?
not.
In the military, when you see it, can you tell a man from a mouse straight away?
No. In fact, there's there's a mythological hero, which is, hero with 1,000 faces type stuff, Joseph Campbell, which I've read all of his, about a dozen of his books.
Wonderful books.
I've studied, Oriental mythology and Occidental mythology and all. So there's that sort of hero, mythological hero. And then there's what we would call on a day-to-day hero, somebody who just, rescue somebody when they needed help. I mean, and took a great risk to do it. Or the way that many women are heroes is just being there through thick and thin when things are really bad. Women are very good at endurance, right? Like in the endurance hero, and then in cases like this, I mean, this is your make or break moment. You either stand up or you don't stand up, and you took that position knowing that was a position where you would either stand up or not stand up. You're an actual traitor that took that position and is blocking somebody else from doing it. They want that position or they wouldn't be in it. They don't have to take it. RFK doesn't have to be there. He could easily just go back to surfing in Hawaii, where he likes to do. He likes to surf in Hawaii and that sort of stuff. He could do that. He could go off and hit his gym and all that stuff, but he doesn't do it. But what's a hero? Can you tell the difference? Actually, going through Special Forces selection, there was a game that some of the they call them TACs, the people that put through selection, they call it stud or dud, trying to figure out who's going to make it. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult, actually, because a lot of people you think, oh, that guy's pretty wimpy, he's not going to have a chance. He turns out to be like super dude, right? Or in combat, it can be the same way. In combat, you can think, that guy's going to be a super stud. Stuff starts going down, and he might not be there like you would expect it, but then these people emerge from out of the blue. It rearranges the way you look at the world, actually. And I've had this rearrangement many times. But when it came to RFK Jr., I was suspect of him from the beginning. He just doesn't feel right to me. It didn't feel right. I almost took him to the Darien Gap, though. I wish he would have come, but he didn't do it. Well, he said that he was going to go in advance on a show. That's why he didn't do it with me.
Sasha, if you tried to ring him directly, and you must have his direct line, would he pick up to you?
I have his number. I try not to abuse connections like this. I texted him. So last time when I published the letter asking him to revoke the PrEP Act declaration, it's on my Twitter, and it's a 5-minute video which I recorded explaining clearly that he has this authority and what this means. It received a lot of views. Later on, myself and three other colleagues, Shannon Joy, Mary Telly Bolin, and Naomi Wolf, slightly expanded and revised it, and again published it, and sent it to him. I texted it to him. He called me back at that time. This was in May of last year. He called me back. And he said, yes, I know what you want me to do, meaning revoke the PrEP Act declaration. So I'm telling you, he knows this. And so, yes, I know what you want me to do, but I have a president to report to. So he's referring to Trump, not letting him do this, which I understand. As I said, he works at the pleasure of Trump. Trump works at the pleasure of pharmaceutical, military, industrial complex and banking complex and trafficking cartels and obviously Epstein network now and, whatever else. So, of course, they won't let him do it. Didn't he know this before? I'm going back to Michael's point. He knew full well this was going to happen. He knew the minute that they called him to, broker, whoever Kelly Means called him to broker the deal to join Trump's campaign, right? So he knew this absolutely. Yet he continued to get the political victory to deliver these people to Trump, and now, he's in this position, completely walked back all his promises. So while I totally hear what he says, I understand what he says, but I can't, this is unacceptable to me.
We all have the ability to say the job's not worth it, the pay packet's not worth it, my integrity being compromised is not worth it. So I'm going to do what I know my soul would cheer on in me. And I mean, he is brought up as a Catholic. And frankly,
if I were in his position, what I would have done, maybe I would have gone through this. But then the first thing I would do is come to the office, write that memo, terminate that thing, knowing that, of course, they can reissue it again, but also explain to the people what just happened and why and what this means, so that this mechanism can't be. I can't be the only person counteracting trillions of dollars in propaganda, censorship, and all sorts of things, explaining to people why this matters, why this all hinges on this. He could have done it and educate millions around the globe in a second before getting fired. Absolutely. And then afterwards, he could have had a huge podcast, just like Tucker Carlson, and doing it for a long time and preventing them from ever using this again.
And being adored, which he clearly does
being
love.
Adored, being very rich, supported,
Yes.
Look, it seems like Tucker Carlson's doing perfectly fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And more than that, and then I want to hear from you, Michael, more than that, on his deathbed, being able to look his God, because they are a big Catholic family, his God in the eye and say, you know what, I did my best. I really can honor you, God, and say I did my best. But I don't think at this stage he can do that. Michael, you're so strong and you're so clear, and it does unnerve people. But this is what your call is to other men, well, to all of us, but particularly to men who want to be seen by the world's women as real men. And that's the feedback I've had on our interviews we've done. I love Michael's directness. I love that he's a real man. He's a strong man. He's the kind of man we need at this time in the world. We've always needed strong men to stand, and that's what they've tried to break, haven't they, Michael?
Yeah, that's what they tried to mitigate and dissolve, so that they don't have people that will stand up on the borders. They don't have people that, I mean, this war has so many WMD that's been unleashed on us. One are these jabs. Others are obviously open borders. There's so many the attacks on our food supply, for instance, the screwworms and these sorts of things that we've been talking about for, 4 or 5 years now. Masako and I have been warning about these different things, which are all coming to pass, right? And
tell us about the screwworms, for those who don't know, just briefly.
Oh, the screwworms there's a flesh-eating larva from a fly. These larvae are called screwworms, and these things will eat cattle, they'll eat sheep, dogs, people, and they eat meat, not fish, but they eat mammals, right? And so in the 60s and 70s, the USDA fought these screwworms out of the United States. You always have to have the entomologist involved. And one entomologist discovered that the females mate only once in their life. And if they don't procreate, then the R naught drops below 1 and the population collapses, right? So they would irradiate billions of male flies and release these in certain population centers to try to collapse the population, which worked. So they would drop them out of airplanes and boxes and out of the back of pickup trucks in the right places and that sort of thing. So fought these flies out of the United States, down through Mexico, down through Guatemala and Belize, and through Nicaragua and Honduras and all that, down through Costa Rica, and the front line was the Darien Gap. So the United States Department of Agriculture has a program down there. Misako and I were in a private briefing with one person. It was only three of us, Misako and I and the other person. And we were asking about the other critical aspects of the Darien Gap, which is that area between Colombia and Panama, right, with no roads. That's why they call it the Gap, because it has no roads. And he said one of the most important aspects of the Darien Gap is as a biological barrier, for instance, in fighting the screwworms. So immediately, Misako and I had never heard of screwworms before. So we went out, we researched a little bit more of that, and I think it was the exact same day, or very soon. It might have been the next day. I think it was the same day. I asked for a meeting with the people that run that program in Panama, American government. And the response, which I published, the email response, was one that, I can feel it. I deal with governments all the time. They're clearly covering up. Now, we know that they're trying to cause famine. We know that because they say it, right? We know that, like cutting Nord Stream, which we predicted, and Groningen and gas field, which we predict, many things that we've successfully predicted far in advance. So we published way back then that we thought screwworms would make it back to the United States. And most people like us had never heard of screwworms. And keep in mind, we made that prediction with like that much information. That was an intuition shot, right? I just threw a dart, a javelin, you might say, and said, I think this is going to hit right in the middle. I think we're going to end up, Misako and I said, we think we're going to end up with screwworms in the United States. Texas first. And boom, just last week or so, the governor of Texas, Abbott, declared a screwworm emergency, right? How did we do that? Because we know what they're doing. We know how the crocodile hunts. We know how it's, they're trying to cause famines. They're trying to depopulate us, like with these death jabs, like with the so many other poisons that are out there, whether it's in the sky, in the water, the fluoridation, all these different things, poison sound that they call music, that literally trying to persuade boys they're girls and girls they're boys. So many different things, right? It's a full spectrum war, or as Catherine Austin Fitts would call it, omni war. But in the American military, they call it full spectrum. The Chinese call it unrestricted warfare, which is a good book called Unrestricted Warfare. Actually, everybody should read it. But so there's different names for the same thing, which is basically coming at you with everything, money, currency, just so many sorts of weapons. And now you can overcome a lot of these weapons instantly by just recognizing who is doing it and start mitigating them. Them. Like, who are the people that are pushing the jab? Who are the people, straight up Zionist, straight up Christian, Jewish, atheist, but Zionist, right? They are clearly pushing the jab. Where's their aircraft carrier? Israel, which is trying to get us to fight Iran right now. Why would the United States fight Iran? Why are we involved in the Ukraine war, right? Yeah. This has no benefit to us. It's absolutely massively dangerous for everybody, causing mass death already. This is the same ecosystem that's doing this. The same ecosystem that pushes this poison sound that they call music. The same ecosystem that's pushing these drugs all over the place, right? Pushing these drugs like cannabis. Trump and Soros. Trump says he's for closed borders, but he's not. He hands out the visas. They're not doing mass deportations. They're not doing it at all, right? And Trump is all about pushing cannabis around the United States. And Soros is too, right? It's the same ecosystem. They're playing different dances to get other, because there's different demographics and different belief systems, but they got a key for every one of them, and they're using all the keys that they can.
Oh, yeah. They use every possible. Now, I mean, one thing I would caution people, especially when you said, about this screwworm thing, and then governor of Texas declares emergency. Well, hearing those words, I would okay, let me check on this, because them being able to declare any sort of emergency means he gets funding.
Yep.
So he may be motivated to collaborate with whoever is bringing those flies or whatever through the border in order to justify him declaring emergency and getting federal funding. This is 100%. Like Newsom will burn forests here in California just so that he can declare emergency and get more funding. And the same goes for all of these people. Is they will just stop at nothing.
I think it's a matter of time until we see bovine tuberculosis in Texas, right? And that will be a direct attack on food supply. The screwworms.
But they can easily induce it by vaccines. So they can induce bovine tuberculosis by vaccine and then PCR test. Same thing that they did with those ostriches in Canada, if you remember. Same exact thing. And then go and say, yeah, it's an emergency, declare emergency, at the same time wipe out the cattle or wipe out whatever they were going to, it's very easy to do.
So they're doing multiple things at once. One is they're reducing our food supply because they're clearly driving into famine. And another is, and you get money along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, you get paid to commit the crime and you get rewarded for committing the crime. And that's what they're doing.
And notice Abbott in Texas, I mean, he's all for throwing the First Amendment out in defense of Israel. He's very clear about that. This is like not ambiguous. There's clear words, right? Talk bad about Israel, you're in trouble, right? He's clearly captured.
Yeah, he's their guy. He's their guy. Yeah, Abbott.
That has to be written at the desk of Benjamin Netanyahu, that rule, and then disseminated around the world. That's clearly out of him. Do you both see a differentiation between real Jewish people in Israel, or maybe Israel itself, and Zionism? That Zionism, to me, is a sort of parasite on the real Jewish people in Israel, of whom I gather there are many who say, we don't want the Zionists. They don't represent the real Jews. Where do you both stand on that? It's confusing to people.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I have a lot of Jewish friends. I have lots of, both and I grew up. We had a lot of family friends, Jewish in Ukraine and Soviet Union. I have friends in Israel. I have friends, Jewish friends in America who grew up in Israel and came to live in the U.S. I know Orthodox Jewish people. All of them are wonderful people. Like the Zionism, as you said, Zionism has nothing to do with being Jewish or Jewish religion, what they believe in, what kind of people they are. I have lots and lots of friends and lots of experience with variety of people. Some of them actually very aware of Zionism, and we have conversations about that, and they do have this, oh my God, this is awful, it's awful what they've done. Israel does not have a constitution. Because it's a feudal state of Rothschilds, right? So Israel never had a constitution. They always said, we need to our country first. We'll get to that later. And Zionism replaced that. The Zionist ideology replaced that, and it's rotted the society. It's rotted what people are, again, willing to do, willing to go for. And some of my Jewish friends are very aware of this. I won't say that all of them are, but some of them are very aware of this.
Yes, I have some who say we can't stand Netanyahu. And that's an interesting analogy, isn't it, Michael? That really Zionism is the Rothschilds at play. I was told when I was on the election campaign in 2023, someone came up to me in the South Island and said, that every country belongs either to a Rockefeller or a Rothschild sort of cabal, and that New Zealand is a Rothschild country. Interesting. I mean, I hadn't heard anything like that before, but I don't know if either of you have come across that. But really, Zionism is Rothschild.
They divided the world. They divided the spheres of influence geographically, as well as in other manners. Like for example, Rockefellers are known for all the medicine, right? So they've captured the medical field. Early on, the Rockefeller Institute was always conducting these horrific experiments on humans, cooking up these vaccines, cooking up the poisons. There's always a Rockefeller somewhere nearby. The things that I've reviewed, every poisoning activity, Rockefeller Institute is involved in, and USDA also. It's also Rockefeller, so that's their sphere of influence. Rothschild is probably more banking related, but then they also have different geographies.
Michael, were you aware of that?
Oh, yeah. Some of my closest battle buddies are Jewish, by the way. There's only one person that will sometimes publish on my X page, Twitter, right? And whenever he publishes, it's under JBS. So all my Twitter followers know that. JBS. JBS means Jew behind the scenes. It means Jewish, right? Hardcore Orthodox Jewish, right? One time we were in Tokyo like 10 years ago, and we were plotting on China. We're fighting CCP, Chinese Communist Party. We fought China together for years, all over Asia and traveling around. At one point, we're in this cigar thing, and he smokes cigars, and he's got the dimly lit in the leather chair creaking, and he's smoking a cigar. And I'm like, you know what? You really are the Jew behind the scenes. And it's been a joke ever since then. So if you see JBS on my X, he's Orthodox, hardcore Jewish, and hates the Zionists. And in fact, his whole ecosystem does. They don't like Israel. They know why Israel was formed. Israel was formed because the Suez Canal was formed in 1869. And, the British were deeply involved in that. And they were, Masako and I, we have one of those original shares that were issued in 1899. It hangs on our wall in our library in Japan. I mean, we've got one of the originals, and top name on that, Theodore Herzl, right? But so, I mean, the reason that Israel was formed was the same reason that Panama was formed, for canals. Panama Canal opened Suez Canal opened in 1869, and that became the spinal cord of the British Empire, right? The British wanted control of that canal. They were afraid it would come into the hands of the Egyptians, which it did, and all kinds of other things. It turned out to be right. Likewise, we wanted to build the Panama Canal. So that's why Israel was formed. Israel was formed to control Panama, or the Suez Canal. But Panama in 1903 was actually part of Colombia. And we had done all these reconnaissance in Colombia and Panama and Nicaragua and Mexico and all these different places trying to build a path between the seas. And finally decided it would be Panama. And Colombia didn't want to play. So we sponsored a rebellion. In 1903, November 3rd, 1903, the Republic of Panama was born to make a canal. Israel and Panama were born from the same reasons. Canals, right? Routes and resources, and using ideology in the case of Israel as one of the weapon systems. That's why we're in Sweden, by the way. We're not in Sweden on vacation. We're in Sweden because it's directly related. The Danish straits, which is next door, is directly related to Panama. Routes and resources, Maersk, and anyway, not to go into that. We'll save that for another time. But I mean, these wars that we look at, routes, resources, and ideology comes down to human resources. But you see right now, the moving around and reducing populations and growing populations, this is a tale as old as time. I mean, the Romans were good at it, and they were good at it for a long time. And the British, Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, everybody, they farmed people, right? You should see our library. You got to come visit us in Japan and in our library, and there you go. There's the books. I'll see you next week. There's so many books. I mean, you won't even be able to open them all. It's taken a long time to collect them all. The library that we've assembled is a library of war, but there's no books on guns. There's no books on jets and all that. It's all about medical. It's about population, moving populations around. It's about gold and silver and banking and, the Bank of International Settlements and Rothschilds and all that stuff. It's all these different things that most people don't look at as war, psychological operations, and it's anthropological warfare is absolutely massive. We got a huge section on that, on the anthropological warfare. The main weapon we used against the Indians in the United States was not even rifles. We were poisoning them with whiskey, firewater. We reduced their populations and destroyed their cultures largely with whiskey. And then we moved them around and, reduced. These were strong people. The Indians in America, they were very, very strong. They were no joke, but they had a weakness for whiskey. And that weakness ended up, it was devastating. And then, once we got them into debt traps and the same sort of thing we got millions of American university students are in debt traps right now that Cherokee and Choctaw and Chickasaw and all those guys would recognize because they got in debt traps too, right? And entire countries recognize this. I mean, it happens on a small scale and it happens on fractally scale it up to, entire regions, not even just countries, but regions.
Yeah. It's about pattern. It's about pattern recognition, isn't it? Really, it is. Maybe we can move to that. What are you doing? What have you found in Sweden that you weren't aware of before you actually were on the ground there?
Well, we just spent more than a month with Catherine Austin Fitts down in Netherlands. And we spent a lot of time in Netherlands over the years because Netherlands is another key component. If you want to control Europe, you need to control Rotterdam and Antwerp, right? Those two harbors. So the globalists are working to make something called tri-state city. And they're taking out all those farmers. They're reducing the Dutch population and the Belgians and the Germans, right? Reducing their energy supplies and that sort of thing. And another place you want to control is the Danish Straits and Hamburg in Germany, Hamburg Harbor, right? So the biggest harbor in Europe is Rotterdam. Second is Antwerp. Third is Hamburg. Masako and I were just in Hamburg as well. But you would also want to control the Danish Strait. Now, keep in mind, Maersk, which is a massive shipping company, China owns a shipping company called Costco, and Maersk owns a country called Denmark, right? So that's why I call it Denmarsk. Maersk is now, they bought the railway in Panama that goes between these two ports on each side of the Panama Canal. That railway opened in 1855. It became the most profitable railway in the world for a spell. It was the first intercontinental railway, actually. That wasn't a railway up in the United States. That was Panama, actually, 1855. And so that was a vital railway that opened before the canal. Now, as the canal was opened in 1914, these two ports that emerged on each side of the canal were recently run by C.K. Hutchison. A court decision about 2 weeks ago in Panama then took that away, and Maersk is taking those. So Maersk now has the railway that connects them, and they have Boardwalk and Park Place. So if you want to, that is absolutely massive. So when you look at Greenland, and you look at Denmark, and you look at Panama. Panama is now Panama is a big fight between the Zionists and CCP, right? That's the big fight. And now Maersk is very close with CCP. So Maersk is going to be going heads up with the Zionists now, right? Because, anyway, not to go into all this, but you look at Greenland, you've got which is, Denmark. You look at the GIUK, the Greenland, Iceland, UK sea corridors, right? These sea lanes. So if you're gonna control a lot of the physical world, you need to control Panama, you need to control the Danish Straits and those sea lanes. So you would take Greenland, you would take Iceland, and you would take Denmark, right? You would take the Danish Straits, right? You would take the Strait of Malacca, Iran. You would take the Suez Canal, right? You would obviously the Bab al-Mandeb, eventually Strait of Malacca if you can. Good luck with that one, and also the Turkish Straits and the Strait of Gibraltar, right? You want these chokeholds, but what is within their reach is Panama, obviously Suez. I mean, that's a big deal. You're gonna have to bite off Egypt on that one, and Strait of Hormuz. Actually, if you took the Strait of Hormuz, that's down there, right there at Iran. I mean, these are big deals. That's why we're up here now in Sweden. We're gonna go to Norway and Denmark. We're studying the Danish Straits because the Danish Straits is. Well, I mean, the Swedes and the Danish have fought for centuries over the Danish Straits. I mean, that's how important it is. It's the Baltic. It's control of the Baltic, right?
Extraordinary. Yeah. It's extraordinary. What are you finding as far as the Swedes? I mean, friends up in the Scandinavian countries tell me Sweden is very broken. It's been very woke. It's been very programmed. It's been very MK Ultra. Do you find the Swedes that you've met, there is still a strong Viking energy there? There is still a willingness to stand up, Michael?
Some. You can see it in some, but mostly it's mitigated. It's been reduced. Like with Ireland. I hear the same tone and the same tenor from whether I'm in Australia or Canada or across many places in the United States. And Ireland, and here it's the same. Well, what can we do? Netherlands, what can we do? What should we do? It's like, what you should do. What must be done. Nobody's going to, this fellow called me last month. He's one of my readers. He's in the Dominican Republic, which is on the island of Hispaniola, right? Which shares an island. It's near Cuba. So Hispaniola is an island that has two countries, Haiti and Dominican Republic, right? So that's one island, two countries. Now he told me that he sees Haitians coming in large numbers into Dominican Republic, getting jobs as policemen, getting political power. And I went down there about 3 years ago or so to the Dominican Republic and went to the Haitian border with a Haitian preacher and spent several days there, actually about a week, and looked at this, quite a bit, as much as you can do in a week anyway. But at the end of the day, this fellow who called me from Dominican Republic, he said, "Why are they doing this?" I said, the way that you're talking and everything, it's the same thing I hear in Ireland and Canada and these other countries. It's, what can we do? What has to be done, right? He said, well, what's their plan? I said, their plan is simple. They're going to use the Haitians to kill you, and then they're going to kill the Haitians. That's very simple. And he's like, why would they do it in why would they do it on our island, Hispaniola? I'm like, well, you have the oldest standing cathedral in all of the Americas, right? Why do you have that there? Why do you have the oldest settlements in all of the Americas? It's because you're strategically located. That's why. You're strategically located and inconvenient. There's a lot of people that would love to have that island, but you're on it. It's the same with the Irish. There's a lot of people that would love to have Ireland without the Irish on it, right? So they're bringing all these people in. And by the way, a lot of the people doing this are the same people that push the jab, right? Exact same people, right? So at the end of the day, these replacement populations that are coming in will themselves be genocided. The Israelis themselves have been used to do the things that have been done to clear out the Palestinians and eventually others, and then they will be genocided. Look, they were pushed for the jab too. The Israelis are some of the most dope-smoking people I've ever seen. I mean, they smoke a lot of cannabis. They've been reduced as well. A lot of the Israelis now have taken off to Patagonia. They're in Panama. They're in Koh Tao and Thailand, and up in Pai in Thailand. They're in. Some are going to Ukraine. Some are going to New York and Miami. Right? They're in Cyprus. They punched out of Israel. A lot of them are in Germany. Right? So the plan is not to make that a home base for Jewish people. It never was. It was about routes and resources, and it used ideology in service to the war on controlling the Suez. But then, of course, later they discovered that energy off of Gaza and other things, building the Indo-European corridor, building the Ben Gurion Canal and all these different things. The Haifa harbor is obviously important now. It's geography is key. And Israel and Panama and Sweden and Denmark, they're in key places. I mean, the United States now has agreement. Lars can tell you about this, Sasha. The United States now has agreements to use Swedish military bases. Why? Because we can take the Danish straits. We can fight Russia with that, right? I mean, and who's doing that? Is it the United States? No, it's obviously captured by Zionists. Trump is a Zionist. When I first was saying Trump is a Zionist, people are saying, you're anti-Semitic. I'm like, where do you make this giant leap, right? And the fact is, he admits to it and says it with his mouth. It comes out of his lips, right? He is a Zionist. He doesn't hide it. He's proud of it, right? And it's the Zionists that are doing this. The Zionists are the ones that want to destroy Ukraine. They want to destroy Russia. Yep. They want to destroy all these things, and they want control. They want to rule the world, like many people have done in the past, want to rule the world. And part of ruling the world includes getting rid of us. They got to get rid of us. They got to get rid of white people. And they're going to use other people to do it, and then they will kill them too. That's the plan.
Why
they don't hide it.
Why is it the whites? Is it because we question more? Is it because we used to have more critical thinking? What is it about us that they are so against?
I don't know. Yeah. But it's a deep hatred. One thing that I've noticed is that professional victims are always predators. I've never seen an exception to that, whether it's on a personal one-on-one level. Anytime you meet a professional victim, just shields up, slam the door, right? And because eventually they're going to do bad stuff. And entire cultures can be professional victims, right? And there's quite a few of those, right? And
they're also not necessarily race-based or nationality, or ethnicity, or anything like that. It really is a psychological mindset that can be developed or trained into somebody. And so a lot of, for example, education in the modern Western world is training a professional victim. The victimhood Olympics, the identity politics, the intersectionality, who is the victimist of the victim. To get into prestigious university, you need to claim some sort of victim status.
Yes.
And that's being trained in or progressing on a job, also need to claim a victim status. I have a bunch of very talented, very smart white men with huge amount of experience. They cannot get promoted on their jobs. And they're even told so openly. Oh, you're super qualified, but we need to hire a woman, we need to hire a Black person, we need to hire this other underprivileged, blah, blah, blah. No, but you're not underprivileged enough. And so that's how it is. It's not race necessarily based. It's what those perpetrators decide as a most optimal way to slice, dice, separate, and create fights and create resentment is by, and it's also very well known. It's even prevalent in animal world. So this is ingrained in human, the desire for justice and fairness. And we're very good at assessing fairness. And this is even demonstrated in animals, that if you start treating somebody preferentially in front of somebody else for no apparent reason, and obviously in an unfair way, you're going to elicit a certain type of response. And this is what these behavioral nudgers are doing.
It is, and it's very dangerous for the professional victims, because the professional victims are like Trump. They're condoms. Notice Trump is always, nobody has been treated as badly as me. I'm the worst. The guy was born on third base, pretends he hit a home run. He was born rich. He's always been rich. He's always been a worthless scoundrel. I mean, he was raised up to be that thing, right? I mean, he was planted as a sapling. He was already, in the Olympics to see who's going to be the top poison tree, right? And he will be for a short time, and his autumn is here now, and he'll soon be gone, and he'll be replaced with another one. The only way to fight this is ultimately you got to rip out that architecture by the roots and attack it at the firmware level. In other words, rewrite that firmware, that cultural firmware of perpetual victimhood. And so this won't happen in our lifetimes. I was just actually messaging with JBS today about this specifically. We have to rewrite that firmware so that people are not professional victims, because it doesn't pay to be a professional victim. And because when you're a professional victim, it's being programmed into you so that you can be used and discarded, because ultimately nobody wants a professional victim around other than as a fungible tool.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, the bias against whites. If you look on the micro level too, you can always see the macro. So I always try to pick up little stories. A friend of mine, her father's just gone into hospital with pneumonia. She normally would have a hospital pass when he's there, a place to park her car. She was told the other day the policy has changed in Auckland Hospital. Get this, only Maori and Pacifica, people from the Pacific Islands can have it, not white people, can have a pass if your relative is in
drinking
hospital.
Fountains?
Yep.
Have you tried that?
It's real apartheid. And it's coming in so quietly and so covertly with a sort of grinning, sort of Humpty Dumpty looking face on our Prime Minister. Hey, there's nothing to see in New Zealand. A total weffer, a total servant, slave to his overlords at the UN and the WEF. But it is so relentless what they're doing here. So one of the fight backs, Sasha, is your case. And I want to go back to that because people need to understand, we have emphasized follow it, but this brave little group, this valiant group, are taking on Albert Bourla and also Bill Gates, are they not? And Gates has been commanded to attend. Am I right there?
So the lower court already ruled, this was in November, that in the main case, there will be a hearing scheduled. And so, as I said, we probably will merge these cases. But the substantive hearing will be scheduled sometime later this year, probably toward October, and that Bill Gates has to show up in court. Now, he has been responding through the lawyers. I've seen, as I said, I've seen their responses. So he has been responding to the case. I don't know if he's actually going to show up or going to disregard the judge's decision or what they're going to do. But so far, that's what's going on. Yes, this is the only place in the world. I am frankly amazed and at what we have been able to achieve so far with how little. I have been early in my career. I was working as a management consultant. I was working on large profile litigation. So the firm that was doing econometrics and litigation support, preparing expert witness testimonies. So the only business of this firm was to help prepare expert witness testimonies for academics, professors, the people who would typically testify in IP cases or taxation or some other technical manner, and I was working in the pharmaceutical clients. And I saw how much I was involved in the case, for example, where U.S. government, IRS, was suing GlaxoSmithKline, and we were on the defense team helping GlaxoSmithKline defend themselves from IRS. My job was, I was early research analyst. My job was to read board meeting minutes of GlaxoSmithKline going back to the 60s. Those were hand typed and scanned. And my job was to read every single one of them for specific things that we were looking for the defense. And we had a team of maybe 20 people working on tasks like this, just to prepare for a case of that magnitude. Right. And here we have us working for free. I have written a testimony which already has been submitted to the court, and Catherine also submitted hers to the court. Her testimony is about 300 pages of meticulous law research. And I'm telling you, in private practice, this would take a team of 10 people for a year to do what she did. And my testimony would also take a team of 10 people for a year to do. And we're doing it all for free. And the same goes for other experts, and same goes for the attorneys. And, people in the US telling me, I can't take on cases like this. It will take $5-6 million to prosecute. Guess what? We have $0. And look how far we were able to get. If anyone else in my profession with my level of knowledge, I'm not like the genius, right, or rocket scientist, if more people just stood up, just tried to join some sort of effort like this, look how far we could get on how little. And they cannot do anything against us.
We're the same. We do it on absolutely nothing. And yet I've reached out, to some really high net worth people. And it's just discouraging, actually, how they are clinging in their fear to their monies. And I try to quote you, Michael. I try to say, look, Michael Yon has said, if you were not given a specific warning about the jab, know that you are not at their table. You are not on their ark. I've quoted you, Michael, to several wealthy people, and they'll make nice noises. One of them wrote back to me and said, you're doing the work of God, Liz. Well, God's telling you to support some of us. But they are clinging to their money, I think, in the false hope that because I'm very, very wealthy, when it gets really bad, I will be okay. But their boat has holes in it as well.
For a surprise.
Yeah.
Boy, are they in for a surprise.
They will be the first target. Because
exactly.
Look at this. Like, who gets to profit, Liz, of what you got, which is nothing, right?
Yeah.
But those friends with like large estates and large bank accounts and so forth, they're the prime target, right? When really the shit hits the fan.
Yep. The fox is coming for them, and they might be trying to shelter at the back of the hen house, but there's still a hen because, Michael, they weren't warned. They weren't warned specifically about this bioweapon, this weapon of mass destruction of the jab. So they need to know they're in the same boat as all of us, don't they, Michael?
Yeah, and over the years, I've read many, many books on pandemic. I mean, like 6 dozen, right? It took years, more than 70, right? It took many years. That was before this pandemic. Then I read a bunch during this one, because pandemic, famine, and war go together, right? So if you're going to study war, you need to study pandemic and famine because they go together, right? That's why and plus I just like science, right? And so I've always read physics and all these sorts of things. But what I'm getting to is I noticed in the study of pandemic, some things overlap. And one is rich people die big numbers in pandemics because they're rich they get scared, and there's always somebody there with a cure, right? So the people with the Masako and I, we were flying from Panama up to we were heading to Mexico, and there was a young couple on there from the brother and sister from Brazil. They were obviously very wealthy, young 20s, and they happened to sit with us. And so, and I'm talking with the young lady, and she said, well, we're just going up to the United States to get vaccines, because they were literally just taking like a week off from university to go get vaccines. I said, you're obviously very wealthy, because they're stopping in Mexico to take a vacation on the way, or they're going both directions. They're going to take a short vacation. I said, I know you don't know me, but just remember what I'm telling you. People like you who are very wealthy and you get to jump to the head of the line, you're getting stampeded off the cliff. I mean, this happens over and over and over. The wealthy people die in large numbers because they can afford the great doctors, right? You got the gold, they got the cure. And so whether it's through intention or just they just want the money, you got to be extra careful when you've got extra money. That's not going to save you. It can be your demise. I hope they didn't take them, but who knows?
Well, if you've got extra money, please be extra careful by sending it to Sasha and Catherine and the others who are doing something for humanity that is absolutely heroic. And we'll put that.
Sasha needs it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
please
big time.
help.
Look at what they've done. And Catherine Watts, right?
Yeah. And
I already paid for my trip, so I'm not asking to pay for my expenses. I already paid for that, but I am helping several journalists who need support, and we also want to bring camera people. We want to organize a more professional type of a presentation, and so that's what we would like to get assistance with. But it's not for me. I'm not asking for myself.
That would be absolutely wonderful to have that and be able to have a lot of live crosses. That story, Michael, is so true. I know a matriarch of one of New Zealand's richest families. She was lining up her children for the jabs to get to the front of the queue. And somebody who is a connection with her told me now she gets over $1,000 worth of vitamins a month. So she knows what she did was foolish, believing. She went to her specialist, her top-line specialist, who told her, don't worry about it. It's only in the arm for a day or so, and then it leaves the body. I mean, who would believe
and now
a specialist
she's
that?
Now she's buying vitamins. What did Sasha say about an hour and a half ago? I mean, food, sunlight, good water. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the vitamins, those vitamins in the bottle are chemicals. Okay, they're not actual. We can go into another 3-hour discussion on the chemistry of this, but the vitamins in the bottle are not going to help you. You need proper water with proper pH and balanced electrolytes. But beside that, it's just sunlight, exercise, good food, and mental health. And somebody was asking me, I took vaccine, I got injured, I don't know what to do. How can I heal myself? Can you give me an advice? My answer is, I'm not a doctor. I can't give you medical advice. However, what I can tell you first, you have to, you already made the first step because you acknowledged how you got injured. You need to seek, as I said, as a beachhead of anything, you need to seek the truth. You already found the truth, that you know how you got injured. You're not in denial. This is a good thing. Now you need to pray, and then you need to meditate, and you need to seek the truth and speak the truth. That's your lifeline to God. And then you will be guided together with your medical care provider who you trust and who is also an honest person. You can't seek help from liars. You can't seek help from people who poisoned you in the first place. Even if you understand this, when you come to them, that interaction now breaks your lifeline to God, because now you're again dealing with the devil. You're dealing with the person who is ultimately a Satanist, even if they're nice and very kind and a pillar of their community and so forth, because they did that to you and they haven't acknowledged that their action, they're now on the bad side, and you going to them is going to prevent you from healing. It's not going to help you. They're going to give you those $1,000 of vitamins and they're going to do anything. They're just going to produce a very expensive urine. That's all.
Can I say something that ties a lot of what Sasha said and Liz, what you said as well? It's like many people over the years, for some reason, have asked me about depression. I don't know why they ask me, but it's a common thing. Maybe it's because they tend to see that I don't get depressed easily. But I felt every emotion that other people have felt. Loneliness, depression. I felt them all as well, right? But some of the keys, wrapping in some of the things we've talked about before. When so many people, I don't know why, have asked me over the years about depression, the first thing I want to do is see what music you listen to. What poison are you? So if you're listening to a bunch of sad songs, all these lonely songs, gotta go. I don't care what it is. All gone, be gone. And I know you love all these different bands. Gone, right? Give me your phone, erased. And the next thing is all intoxicants must go, right? And that includes whatever the doctor's prescribing. Flush it down the toilet. No cannabis, no alcohol, no nothing, right? And go for long walks. And don't listen to earphones when you're walking. Listen to the birds and stuff. Don't listen to anything. Just walk and walk in the sunlight. And I would walk for months at a time. I'd go out to the Himalayas and walk. I'd take breaks from the wars, just go like walk up to Mount Everest or whatever. And the thing is what you'll find too is you'll find that you're a lot smarter than you imagined because you need time. You've learned a lot of things, but you don't always have a chance to put them together. So it's like a bunch of boxes you brought into the house and they're all still packed up. But you go these long walks, right, for like weeks at a time, and you'll start to go, oh, now I see how that connects to that. And you're like, man, I already knew all this stuff. I just needed a chance to put it together. You know what I mean? And your depression, if you were feeling bad about stuff, I mean, I'd just go walk in the mountains and I'd go back to the wars, right? And the thing is no intoxicants, no sad music. And for that matter, you can get rid of all that music except for maybe Beethoven and that sort of thing. I mean, that's good. But you know what I like is just birds. I've always loved birds. I just love birds for some reason.
Being in nature is absolute must. And a lot of people don't get to be in nature, especially when they live in crowded cities, and that's a limitation. But if you have to live there, if your job or wherever that's where you live, find ways, find activity on the weekend, find activity that takes you to the park, that takes you outside, that you can start looking to the horizon is incredibly powerful. That's why I live on the West Coast. I drive a lot. I'm just going to take another 3-day drive through the desert, and I love it because when you see to the horizon, there's something that opens your whole body. You feel like, oh my God, I am so much bigger than I thought before. And that
Lars and I were talking about that last week. We were just talking about
it's exactly I advise people to go outside and try to find a spot where you can see very far to the horizon, and look there and look what you can find, study it, and you will understand how empowering it is, because it is literally like expanding your physical body, your physical space, and your mind. And but what depression is you're crunched in. You're like you're falling in. You need to expand.
And it doesn't take like 3 months. It's like 3 days. I mean, you'll feel good instantly. One of the most important things is good sleep. I mean, you got to get good sleep because without good sleep, none of this works. But good sleep, no intoxicants, no bad, sad, or any of that crap music. Throw that all out. Long walks in the sunshine. Shoot, you're going to feel so good. You don't even know what to do with yourself. You're going to be like me. You just want to run around all the time and do stuff.
An energy bunny. But the other thing is to remind yourself, if you are in the city in a job, I have to stay in the city for my job. No, actually, like RFKJ or Jay Bhattacharya, you could give up the job tomorrow and you could do the right thing. You might do what Sasha and I have had to do and live on very little for a while because you're willing to give up things to have what you really want, which in our case is a true and free world, and Michael's case as well, obviously. But you have to give up some things sometimes for what you really want. And when you realize that you're willing to do that, you have a taste of what freedom looks like. But there's one other thing, even if you are in the city, someone once told me this: if there's a blue sky and you look up to the blue sky and you have depression, the depression will clear Now that's a really interesting thought.
Exactly.
When you see people hunched over looking forward, particularly over their phones, that's a sure mark of the world closing in, and it's a depression that's closing in. So put your shoulders
Just
back.
imagining looking up at the blue sky for some reason gives me a little spark of happiness.
It does.
When you said that, I actually felt a tiny spark of static electricity happiness. You're right.
Yeah.
It's dark here.
Today we have clouds. We had like very nice weather, but today we have clouds.
Yeah, we have so much in New Zealand of that, and they're not natural clouds either. But the other one is get in the sea and let the seawater, salt water, wash over your head for 20 minutes, I was told once. Just swim with maybe a little snorkel and let it just wash and wash, and it clears depression. Because I think there is a lot of depression. There's a lot of need for mental health. And the message really, Sasha, and what you said earlier, which is so, both of you so beautifully articulated, but it was come back to the fact we are in a war, and it is a spiritual war. Ryan Matter is right. It's a war. They've declared war on us, but it's a spiritual war of their evil and our good. And I have always said to myself, good in the end will win over evil. But really, I wonder if they don't want to wipe out white people, because it's really where Christianity, true Christianity, not the Zionist fabricated Judeo-Christianity, but real Christianity bedded in, and they want to burn the churches. They want to burn down God from our lives. I have noted in pattern recognition, they are petrified of us really connecting with the divine source, with God. So if they're petrified of us doing that, that's the path for me. I'd like just to finish perhaps with your views on the spiritual aspect of this war of good and evil we're in. Michael, you first.
Well, I mean, we three already know you can't even do this without a strong spiritual base. I mean, that's the reason why we even do it. We just have that spiritual energy for whatever reason, and I feel it strong. We're not doing it for us. If we were doing it for us, we would just be out quiet somewhere. I mean, but we're not. I mean, because we're doing it for the greater everything. I mean, when you have a mission that's greater than yourself, that's joy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they absolutely. I've noticed that the people who are, the Christianity does teach. It's one of the unique religions, I would say, in that regard, because compared to other religious doctrines, Christianity is the one that says you have to do the right thing regardless of the outcome. You cannot be blackmailed. You cannot be bribed. Those are sins. You cannot lie. That's also a sin. And, so we have these commandments, right? And they're all centered around you must do the right thing. There's no choice. The choice is only good versus evil. Once you start making deals and start being blackmailable, you're no longer of the Christian faith. You turn to the other side. That's very, very clear. Other religions are much more relativistic. Okay. And they will go as far as saying, well, nothing exists. It's just all imagination and whatever, you just do whatever. And they're more about business making and networking than the true spirituality. Also, the Christianity is a religion where you don't have to have a church. You can have a one-on-one relationship with your creator. You can practice alone, although of course in church, having a good supportive church is a good thing. But it centers around your core, your quality as a human being, and that's what I try to tell people. There's no such thing as I'm a Christian, I go to church, I believe in Christ, and then I go to work and I inject children with vaccines because I need my paycheck. There's no such thing. You're not a Christian. You're Satanist.
No, that's right.
So that's my view on Christianity. That's why they're so after Christianity. Regardless actually of the ethnicity, because there are a lot of Christians who are not white, and they're also very spiritual and very strong people. I met them, and also have been very, very harmed and specifically targeted. for their
They're
beliefs.
also targeting Japanese. There very few Japanese are Christian. Japanese are clearly being targeted, and Thais actually, Thai people too. And so it's not just white. So I should be careful and say it's white people, because they're actually going after anybody with a strong, cohesive culture.
Cohesive culture
faith,
that says, that values the individual, that preserves the family, that puts them above anything, that puts your relationship with God and your principle and your religious freedom above the state. That's what they're trying to say. No, the state is what you have to worship. We're going to replace your beliefs, your spirituality, that's why they're saying we're going to eliminate all the religions. We're going to bring one religion, right? That whole one religion that everybody will be praying, and that's going to be the statism, that whole. And I believe they're also pushing Mormon church very, very far into this replacement of Christianity.
Really?
So notice the Turning Point USA. They're all pretending to be these white Christians with Christian values. They're not Christians, they're Mormons. And Mormons, it's a cult. And by the way, very, very much loved by the CIA. It's like a CIA recruiting central, because they're that, they will cross whatever lines, they will do whatever, they will, and they also have now Utah, which is like the central Mormon church is there. Utah replaced their flag. They stylized it even more. I mean, they recently did this update, and their symbol is a hive. And the hive is like this pyramid that's multi-level. It's very stylized into pyramid, and it has multiple layers of the cake, right? So, I mean, how much more obvious do you want them to be?
Our Parliament building in Wellington is shaped. It's called the Beehive.
Right.
Anecdotally.
And Utah is called the Beehive State.
That is
so they want,
so interesting. Is that all tied in with? Is that tied in with Freemasonry as well? It must be.
Yes. They're intertwined. Very similar type of a deal. Called. Yeah. As I said, there are many varieties, but they love Mormons because Mormon elders in the church are so tied with the CIA, and this whole structure and how the churches operates and how they all supposed to be, worshiping the elders. It's perfect and it's been CIA recruiting ground for a long time. It's a pipeline into the high levels of power.
But that's fascinating. Jacinda Ardern and her father were leading Mormons in New Zealand, and there's been a massive Mormon church built on our southern motorway out of Auckland. It just is huge, and it dominates the whole area of South Auckland. Oh,
and notice the Mormon church. The Mormon churches, their cathedrals, what do they look like? Syringes.
Yes.
Freaking syringes.
Very much. Very much. It took a long time for them to build that cathedral, and I wonder what technology is in it. And I certainly didn't mean in any way, I mean, we're all jumpy about this. I have not got a racist bone in my body. What I meant was just that I think Christianity bedded into the sort of United Kingdom culture, into that way of being, and then it was spread out through the British Empire. But I do know a lot of African people are being tormented. I think it's in Nigeria, Christians are being tormented. There's
Ethiopia, Coptic, Egyptian Coptic church.
Terrible.
Yeah, oh my God, they're so prosecuted. Yeah.
Christians are being persecuted around the world at the moment. And I have seen here how our politicians race to get it out of every part of government. So when we were protesting in front of New Zealand's parliament, the Speaker of the House at that point cancelled the prayer they used to say before the House sittings began in Parliament. And that was back in 2022. And I thought then, why would he do that in the middle of a pandemic? What's the reason? Well, that's the reason. They are all Satanists. And Jay Bhattacharya, back to him, in that interview, Sasha told me he has a very deep faith. So that's a huge challenge, Jay, unless you are willing to lay down, as Jesus Christ did, lay down, everything for what he believed. If you are not willing to do the same, can you really call yourself a Christian?
How can he say he has deep faith when he's acting like Judas, exactly like Judas, for like the same amount of money, essentially?
Wow.
I mean, that's my question to him.
This has been a profound conversation.
I got a lot of homework to do after this call. I don't even know where to start. I've been taking a lot of notes. I mean,
I just have, it's been such a delight to talk to you both, but to have you both now in contact, and I'll definitely link you up so you can directly be in contact. You are two colossus who march across this earth in all its troubled state, and you contribute so much that is good. I'd like you, Michael, to finish with your reaction to hearing Sasha speak today, and then Sasha, you on Michael before we go. So Michael, what have you felt talking to Sasha? You indicated something then.
Well, you can see, you asked before, how do you spot a hero? You only spot them when it's time to do hero stuff. Everybody wants to be a hero until it's time to do hero stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, no, the hero usually doesn't actually want to be a hero. It's just like they're like compelled, literally compelled from inside. It's not something that you want to actually be. You really wouldn't really want to be that. But all of our families have been through a lot of trying times. We all come from very strong lines. All of our family lines have been in wars and pandemics and famines. Every one of us, everybody watching this, you came from a line who's been in war, a lot, and you're still here, right? I mean, you've got hardiness in you. Everybody does, right? So you have to find it as much as you can and nurture it, and because now it's time to use it. So and those who prepare, this is a stormy seas moment, and in smooth seas never made a successful sailor. Whoever said that, everybody gets attributed to. So this is that time. So it's rough seas. Let's roll. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sasha,
exactly.
you're feeling hearing Michael and meeting him at last.
I am delighted to meet Michael. I had a lot of respect, and please say hi to Lars.
I will.
So I agree. We need to find people like this. We need to find each other. We help each other to stay strong. It does take a lot of work. I don't want to. I don't want to pretend this is like a wonderful, amazing media success for me, because it's not. And I fight daily. It takes a humongous amount of work. I get censored all the time. Every time I put a good article with a lot of likes and shares, Substack removes, like a dozen paid subscribers from me. So does it demoralize me? Well, I understand what they're doing. I understand they're an enemy. I understand they're fighting me. And so it doesn't demoralize me, actually. So I ask people to develop this attitude. If shit is thrown at you, throw it right back. Pick it up, throw it right back, and keep going. And pick yourself up and keep going. And ask other people along the way and make it interesting for them. Make it exciting. Make it a journey. Life is a journey. We might, we're in the fight, but we might as well, enjoy each other's company and learn something from each other.
That's a wonderful way to end. And I'm going to ask everybody who's watching this, share it everywhere you can, and ask everybody with big accounts to share it out, because these voices need to be heard. And secondly, please sign up to the Substacks of Michael Yon, Sasha Latypova, and Free NZ as well. That's what helps to keep us going. You're signing on and paying something for our Substacks. But it has been a real delight to talk to both of you, and I suspect we will do this again. Sasha, I'd love to meet you in Japan one day. That'd be my dream, and go and see Michael in Masako's library. Wouldn't that be fun?
I'd love to go to Japan. Well, I've been to Japan. I really enjoyed it, but I haven't been to Okinawa, so that would be very interesting.
All right, we're going to do it.
An interesting story on Okinawa. Please, everybody, follow Sasha on March the 9th and the press conference, and also that trial from 11 to 4. We'll put up details on that. Thank you both.
Thank you.